proud to bring you the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
This week on the Pokercast, Jesse Martin. And now, here they are. I've blocked them both on Twitter. Adam and Terrence.
Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. That witty intro or not so witty intro, however you want to phrase it, is a reference to some stuff we'll talk about later with the World Series of Poker and Matt Lance.
Although I wouldn't really be shocked if Ross blocked us on Twitter. We do spew a lot of nonsense.
It's not out of the it's not out of the realm of possibility that we were blocked for badgering him about certain things. And you blocked. Do you block anybody on Twitter? Are you blocking?
I don't block anybody. I don't. There's a lot of people I choose not to follow.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Well, that's the weird thing about it. And we'll talk about it later. We're not.
What does blocking do? It just means that you can't add them, or what? Like
you can't. So the person cannot see your tweets.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So instead of again, we'll talk about it later. Get right into that stuff.
Probably wasn't the greatest idea anyway.
All right, so a big weekend. Roscoe, you had some stuff going on, right? You were up at the Pemberton Music Festival that happens here every year.
The shit show.
So was it a shit show?
Yeah, it was really oddly organized. It was.
They've done it so many years now, and they run into problems every year. You'd think they would get it right.
Yeah, so I guess for those who may be closer to Kells than Pemberton, Pemberton is like 3 hours north of Vancouver typically?
I would say that maybe it's about 2 hours. Yeah, it's just 40 minutes past Whistler.
So most people will know Whistler just because that's where the resorts in Vancouver, the skiing and all that stuff is. So Pemberton's a little after that.
Yeah, right? About 40 minutes past. They have a big festival. It's in a big, huge field. It's you'd think Woodstock. It's huge bands come every year. People camp for like 3 or 4 days. Ross, you were up there camping.
I was camping. It was
well, it's like incredibly hot to begin with this weekend. Unseasonably hot.
You would think the farther north you go in Canada, the colder it would get,
and higher up in altitude too.
It's the opposite. It was like 10 degrees less than Vegas, but a little bit more humid. And they made you hike like 5 kilometers in to camp. And then...
Wow. So you got to bring your beer? You got to hike your beer in?
Yeah. Well, some people did.
And your camping gear and...
Wow. 5K. And the worst thing was you could bring something with wheels, which I planned on doing, but then they made an overpass over the highway. So if you brought something with wheels, you had to unpack it, carry it over the overpass, and then collected on the other side. So it's just people just like
abandoned
so hard
in like 32-degree heat with humidity.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And then but the music was amazing. It was it all made it worth it.
Who'd you see? Who were the big name bands?
The big name bands that I really liked were this group called Matt and Kim. They're from Brooklyn. It's a husband and wife. They just killed it. I've never been to such a high energy show. I really highly recommend anybody, if a Matt and Kim shows comes to your town. It's hard music not to like. It's like indie rock.
So I'm sensing some bumper music this week, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll definitely I'll put it in a song.
Okay.
Who else was great? Let's see. I think Eric Andre was. They had some comedy up there.
Okay.
I've talked about Eric Andre in the past. He has a show on Adult Swim. It was the funniest comedian I've ever seen in my life. I was like cry laughing for an hour.
That was a strong endorsement.
That's good.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I love Eric Andre. And let's see, there was some good rap groups. This guy named Post Malone, who's an unknown rapper out of Texas. The Black Keys were cool. Weezer killed it.
Weezer's high energy, right?
Love Weezer.
Yeah.
And yeah, there were so many. I'm definitely leaving some out. And then, so I was like the only sober person out of a large group of people I was with, probably like 30 people, and
possibly the only sober person just in the town of Pemberton, right?
There's not a ton.
There was no. I had some friends that headed up that I knew that were sober, and I would run into them occasionally, and then try and leave some of the people I was.
Well, it must be really easy to spot sober people because they're like walking in a straight line, like they're not barfing. Like it's just
this is true. Well, I mean, people if they're high on drugs, they'll probably just think you're on some like speedy drugs because you're acting normal.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, are you on coke or something? Because you seem very focused.
So of all your buddies that you go up with, you're the sober one. Everybody else is
pretty much
getting it on, right?
Getting mangled. I was like the reality check for people that were hallucinating. People would be like, is that what I think it is? And then I have to clarify.
It's a flag.
Let's see. It's a flag. My friend thought a flag with it was a purple flag with a crab on it, and he thought it was his friend carrying a Canadian flag.
That's how high he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would be more concerned if I thought my friend was a purple crab. But,
Yeah.
There was a lot of drugs people were partaking in.
But the cops are totally fine with this. So the cops see people.
What can they do? And you've got a giant field of people.
I was going to ask. You saw cops up there. Obviously, they have it.
Yeah.
They're fine with it.
They were pretty chill. I think they were really only looking out for people openly, like maybe selling drugs,
right?
Or
fighting,
because they couldn't stop people taking drugs and violence. They were mainly there to stop violence.
Speaking of violence, there was wasn't there like some sort of weird Red Rover game or something?
Yeah, well, in the middle of the night. So basically, once you get like thousands and thousands of drunk people and you take away the music, they're going to have to find something to do. And there's a massive crowd.
And they're high. They can't sleep.
They're high. Yeah. Nobody's sleeping. So there's this giant sawdust path that connects all of the campsites. And every night they do these things called chicken fights. And it started last year. So tons of people get in a circle. And then one guy gets on another guy's shoulders. And then they try and wrestle each other to the ground. And sometimes
this seems ridiculous. Safe.
Yeah. And then there's like one guy who's like defending champion. And he's like, everybody's trying to take down the champion. And then
one pair that's a defending champion, right?
One pair, okay.
Yeah. So Terrence would be
I'd be pretty good as a top guy. Yeah.
Because he's light.
Yeah.
And he's going to be able to do damage.
Terrence would crush. Yeah. It was amazing.
I need the right partner. Who should I partner with from the poker world? Like maybe your brother.
My brother would be a good partner,
that would be completely unstoppable.
Yeah. we could beat them at chicken and limit hold'em.
Yeah.
Definitely nobody's beating us at both of those things.
Yeah. And then it would be awesome because different types of people would get up. So there'd be like two girls. There'd be like one girl with like a Lucha Libre. What's that?
A Lucha Libre mask.
Yeah, a Lucha Libre mask.
Because it's not the World Series.
And then somebody gets on the shoulder. The crowd goes nuts. There's like somebody like pretend refereeing. Somebody's got a whistle. They've got like a.
There's a pretend Bruce or Michael Buffer. Announcing.
Yeah, and then people. Yeah, whenever they got knocked over, I would go, and it's all over.
Buffer style. Love it.
And then sometimes people in costumes would be fighting. There would be a guy in a penguin suit and a guy in a unicorn suit. So it would be like penguin.
It's not very intimidating.
Sounds fun.
Okay, and then this is the most ridiculous thing that happened. So we were at the Black Keys. And I've never seen this happen at a music festival. So as I said, people are highly intoxicated all weekend. And we're in this crowd. It's like 10,000 people deep. And I'm like right in the middle, front and center at the stage. And I'm there with my friend, and we see another friend, so we push farther into the crowd and go see him. And so we're standing there watching the band, and I feel somebody like push me, and they're like, "Oh my god, what the hell?" And he looks over, and I see a guy like doing up his belt and swaying back and forth.
He took a shit?
He's like, that guy pissed on me.
Oh, pissed on him. Well, yeah, you got to get out. How are you going to get out?
I know.
But you should grab a bottle or something.
I know. It's still gross either way. He just peed all over.
At least he didn't take a dump.
He just started peeing on people, and I was like, I can't believe that guy didn't just get knocked out. I guess he was around a bunch of nice people. But there was a lot of ridiculous, drug user, drunk people type of things going on. Just that seemed
music festivals.
It's completely out of the ordinary in real life, but
yeah, that's the one we have here. I'd love to go to Glastonbury. There's the one festival I'd love to go to, never been to, but I'm not a festival because I don't like camping really. I'm not a camper, so going up to one of those things would be fun. But
you can.
Are there many music festivals with a 5-star hotel nearby?
Right.
Well,
exactly.
You can stay in Whistler.
Yeah, it's just a pain in the ass.
There's shuttles back and forth. So the high rollers, the people, like that's what I'd like to do next year. Get some people and rent a place because the camping, it got pretty brutal after a while.
I was at Rush As a Canadian music fan myself, I've never been to a Rush concert before. A friend of mine had tickets, and never been a Rush guy. Like, I could probably name maybe 3 or 4 songs in my life. And I was blown away. It was, for these guys to be touring 40 years later, and the quality of their play still is fantastic. It was a great show. Had a lot of fun.
They were playing in Vegas, I think, like a couple days before the UFC, the last week that I was in Vegas. I mean, so if you're getting to play at the MGM, your game is still on point, I imagine.
Well, they're popular in Canada for sure, but they're very popular in the US. It was different, like a band like Tragically Hip were never huge at all in the States, but they're huge here. Different with Rush. But my daughter went to One Direction the same night, which was at our hockey stadium. I was at our football stadium. I was at our hockey stadium. And
how many One Direction songs can you name?
A lot, because I hear them all the time. But so I bought tickets for her, and of course it's my daughter, and she's got to have the best. So at Christmas last year, it's her favorite band. She lives for One Direction, and I wanted to get her really good seats, so I bought her row 10 on the floor, right by the stage. And I paid for them, whatever. I met this girl. She was like 22. She's like, "Oh, meet me here, and I'll buy the tickets up here." About 4 tickets. So she gets into the concert, and I ended up getting her this VIP package that got them in for sound check and everything. But you had to bring in your tickets. Anyways, the tickets were no good. They had counterfeited them, and I bought them counterfeit. So my daughter's in there, and they're like, "This seat doesn't even exist. Where did you get this ticket?" kind of thing.
Oh no!
So it was kind of a weird scramble at the end. We ended up getting her good seats from a ticket broker buddy of ours.
Wow. So do you have any recourse of the person that you bought them on?
That's what happens when you buy on Craigslist.
I guess like the only way to defend yourself is to like ask to take a picture of their ID or something like that.
Right. That's what I should have done, I guess. I don't have the communication that I had with her before. It was on text, and I'd changed phones and everything else.
Well, even if you did, it wouldn't do you much good. Like you just have an email address and a phone number.
Which is
You're not the first person I've heard that happening to, actually.
It's the first time it's ever happened to me. I bought a lot of tickets on Craigslist.
But I've sold a bunch too and bought a bunch. It's never happened. But I guess also, a big ticket thing like that, a really expensive ticket like I imagine it was, probably gives you a better chance of disaster.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's move on to some poker stuff. Poker Hand Madness, the competition we had.
And it's all over.
It took a while, and thanks to Johnny Douglas, our fantastic mod, for putting up the different threads and votes and tabulating everything. Really appreciate all the work Johnny does and always has done and continues in the Pokercast form. We're lucky to have him, especially he's busy. He's got 17 kids now, and the kid's got a busy life.
Seems like a bit much.
Anyway, so the final came down to the Andrew Roble hand with Patrick Antonius, the famous hand,
big PLO hand,
where they get it all in with. Andrew gets it all in with top pair.
Against the world.
Against the world wrap. And, if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it. So if you want to check that out. But also the other hand in the final was the Durr hand against Barry Greenstein and Peter Eastgate. Yeah. With the 10.
7-way flop, 7 ways to the flop or something like
10
that.
10 deuce, and Eastgate ends up laying down a deuce on the turn.
How much do you have?
Yeah, and a fantastic hand in its own right. It's great for different reasons.
Right.
Very close final, and the Andrew Roble hand ended up taking it down.
Just for the sheer lulls value. In the end, basically, that's the story of lulls versus interesting poker strategy.
Right.
People choose lulls every time.
Yeah, that's going to win, and it did win out. I tried to get hold of. We were talking about maybe bringing somebody from the hand on the show and talking about the hand. We've actually talked about the Eastgate hand with Barry Greenstein.
Yeah.
But they didn't win, so I was trying to get a hold of Andrew to see if he'd come on and kind of laugh for a few minutes about it. But
you didn't want to get Patrick's take on it.
Patrick, could get. He would just be like, this idiot got 400 big blinds in with top pair. But anyways, no, and didn't hear back from Andrew. I think we've been trying to get Andrew on the show for a while. I think he's a little sick of me texting him, so he's busy
counting his money.
Yeah,
he doesn't have time for this.
So anyway, thanks to everybody who spent some time voting and commenting and giving their thoughts and nominating hands. Really appreciate that. We'll do another madness maybe later in the year. We got to find a new topic, a new category. We've done a lot, so we'll figure out another one to do maybe later in the year. Speaking of later in the year, Pokerstars has...
There is a later in the year.
We are going to be here later in the year, yes. Pokerstars has renewed the title sponsorship for the Pokercast for another year. We thank them
What were
very
they
much.
thinking?
I can't believe we got another one by them.
Legit.
That's fantastic. So good news for everybody who likes to listen to the show and us who like to do it. We're going to be around for another year. And yourself, you're going to be on board for the whole year?
Absolutely.
That's
I mean, you know me. I like to travel. And sometimes you didn't even mention, actually, that we're in the same physical space for the first time since the World Series.
Oh, I thought you were going to say same physical condition.
No, I'm not in the same physical condition as I was before the World Series.
Yeah,
but we're in a studio in a suburb of Vancouver right now. We're actually not in a studio. We're just like in an office space that we rented. But we're here as long as you don't mind me Skyping in from time to time, and occasionally we have some mess ups. It's really more work for Ross more than anything when I'm not in town. So, but I'm always excited to be a part of the show. I love doing this show. I do it for fun because I like.
You don't do it for the
there.
massive paycheck?
I don't do it for the massive paycheck.
Wait, when's that coming?
I'd have to be pretty busto for that to happen, and then we'd have to do a show every day, and I don't know how we'd talk about.
Still wouldn't pay our rent. Yeah, good fun, and thanks again to everybody who does listen to the show, and that's good news that we're going to be around for another year. We got some travel plans this year. We're currently trying to work out.
Well, we know where we're going next week.
Yeah, we where I'm going next week, and then going the week after, we're going to Toronto. I'm going to go away on my golf tour every year. And then we're in Toronto for August 1st for the Daniel's summer party. Daniel Negrano having his party in Toronto. We're going to do a show from there. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll have Daniel on, hopefully, and we'll talk to him about his run in the main event, among other things. But we're also working on heading over to Berlin for the World Series of Poker in October.
Let's do it. Let's just stop saying we're working on it.
Let's do it.
I agree. Let's book the flight right now.
I don't know if Ross is going to want to go, though. It seems like a long way. I don't think he's really a Germany guy. Yeah, that's his thing. Okay. So Ross is in. That's good. We're going to head over to Berlin. Now, we need some help from people in Berlin or that know about Berlin because... we'd love to go somewhere for Oktoberfest festivities. I don't know if that happens. Somebody told me one time that Oktoberfest is actually at the end of September. Yeah. Which maybe they're celebrating the upcoming October. I'm not 100% sure. I can see you hitting Google and there now. That's awesome. I'm doing it. And but also for people in Berlin, where to stay, what should we do? Should we get there early? That kind of thing.
Oktoberfest is 16 days. It runs from late September to the first weekend in October. Okay. And it is in Munich.
Lederhosen.
It's in Munich. So we need Lederhosen drop?
I don't even know how far Munich is from Berlin. I'm so ignorant of European geography.
But maybe we could go to Munich first on the way there, catch a little Oktoberfest. I used to wear...
And the other question I have is there anything for... 2/3 of this show doesn't drink beer. So are there things to do in Oktoberfest that aren't related to drinking beer?
I'll just drink enough for the three of us.
Right. And then we'll watch and encourage.
I got a hunch if we go to a German beer hall and a gorgeous German girl with blonde-haired pigtails.
Okay, yes. If she's wearing a checkered plaid dress, and she has big boobs and blonde pigtails,
and leans over and hands you a stein full of cold beer, I'm thinking you're going to drink that.
Okay, that is the only condition under blonde pigtails, wearing that specific dress. You know the one I'm talking about.
Stein, cold.
Okay,
you're drinking beer?
I'm down for that. Okay. Yeah. We just need to Google the stock image of the German waitress.
Indeed, I believe there is one on the 2+2 forums.
Oh, literally, if you Google Oktoberfest, the first picture, the first result is a girl who looks exactly like that. No pigtails, but looks pretty much looks exactly like that, holding like 12 beers on a tray. Perfect.
Good. So that'll be fun. We definitely want to get involved. That's the one.
That's the one. Result number 6 was the pigtails that we were going for.
I know my friend Mark, who is a listener to the show. He offered to help me out with some PLO hands. He's a PLO boss, and he said that he would show us around. So
perfect.
There's one person.
Nice.
I've already started grinding the Duolingo to get my German. I'm 8% finished the German course on Duolingo.
Nice.
That doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't help at all.
It means I know the word for water.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. But when maybe we'll do a meetup. We'll do maybe a 2+2 because not just people that live in Berlin, but people will be going there for the World Series of Poker. We'll go for maybe a pub crawl one night.
See who will get to interview live for the World Series of Poker Europe.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. So that's one trip. October. We could think about the PCA in January.
Maybe,
But I think
or Aussie Millions.
If we do one other trip, it should be, I think, either the Aussie Millions, which we've been to. God, I love it down there. It's the best.
They just released their schedule this week, actually.
Oh, did they?
Joel Williams, the guy who runs it there, actually emailed it to me personally, sent it up there.
Big shot, right?
Apparently,
perfect.
Big shot.
But also, I think we should go somewhere we've never been. You know what I mean? Like we have maybe one other trip. I love Australia, but maybe somewhere like an LAPT, maybe an EPT that we've never been to, something like that. I think maybe we should try and figure something out there. So
that could be the next the madness on the forum.
Where to go?
Where Adam and Terrence have to go. Then they'll just send us all to like a war-torn village in Africa so we can be shot.
Right. But back to the show.
Party the pants with the pants. Party with pants?
I think we need to look at fresh things to do for the show for this year. We can use this sort of as a time where we can mix it up a little bit.
Yep.
Looking for suggestions.
Yeah, exactly. The contract got renewed, so we can do whatever the hell we want.
Now we can just
there's no clause in there that shows us to be good.
We can not show up. Yeah. We can do all kinds of stuff now. Yeah. But seriously, no, we want to look at ways to keep the show fresh for you.
Yeah.
And we're thinking about redoing the opening, different segments, whatever. If you have some suggestions out there that you think could be implemented to keep the show fresh, feel free to drop into the show thread this week and let us know.
Or exactly. Any show thread. I'm even thinking of we had some discussions about this while we were out at dinner the other night, like sending out an email survey, see what people like. Not everybody likes to post on the forum, so if you don't, you can always email the show, or we may create a Google form and get a survey out there. We want to make this your show too, as much as it is ours.
We need feedback. And pokercast at 2plus2.com if you do want to email. Also, we were talking about drops in the forum this week. It's a good thing that you mentioned the fact that not everybody likes to post, because that made me think of the fact that we were talking about show drops this week. Ross, of course, our wonderful producer, likes to drop in some humor here and there with some different clips from movies and the show and different things in the poker world. Now some people like them and some people don't. There really seemed to be this sort of polarizing thing about
everybody
the show.
likes a chainsaw drop, though, right?
There's certain drops that everybody loves.
All right. I'm just making sure that we're not getting rid of that one.
But one of the key things, and I think somebody mentioned, or we talked about it before, was keeping them short. If they become long, then it becomes difficult to fit them into the show.
The main problem is I think that if I'm away that I can't hear them and I don't actually know that they're happening.
So people don't know that
sort of.
So let's explain that. If Terrence is not in the studio like he is today, we don't have it set up.
It's just the way the audio is set up that it won't go over Skype. Yeah. Basically, and I'm calling in on Skype. When we're all in the same room, we're all listening to the same, I don't know what this piece of equipment is called, but...
M-Box?
What is it called?
We don't listen to
M-Box.
An
M-Box, okay. So I can hear it through the M-Box.
It's the thing that allows us all to hear the recording.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So when I'm not here, there's no M-Box. Okay.
So if Terrence can't hear the drop, he ends up talking over it.
And the guest won't hear the drop. So we'll definitely, I think, avoid playing the drops over the guest interviews. Yeah. But we'll figure it out. Well, hopefully we figure out a way to manage it when I'm not in the Vancouver town.
We will.
Indeed. One of the things that happened to me today was, do you play ABC Poker, the OFC, and the ABC Poker app?
I do not play on that app. I do sometimes play on a different app.
Well, on the ABC app, all the current games disappear from your game log.
No shit.
Yeah.
So you don't know how much you're up or down against anybody anymore?
Right.
Oh my God, that's an
all
epic disaster.
Now, I don't know. I saw it on Twitter. There was a few people. I don't know if it happened to everybody. It happened to me. I lost 8 games on there.
Oh my God.
Luckily, I had a pretty good idea where I was. I was playing 4 games against 2 people.
And it's people you trust, obviously, so they're probably not going to dispute it.
And then I was playing some free games against people that obviously doesn't matter when you're just playing for fun or whatever. So I talked to Nikolai Yakovenko, we've had on the show, who is the inventor of the ABC app, and he mentioned that it's a Google issue. There's an issue there with Sorry, an Apple issue, not Google issue. I think of Google when I think of Nikolai, of course.
So like an iTunes store thing, like an App Store thing?
He thinks there was a bug and some programmer probably wrote some sort of code that accidentally killed, because it didn't just happen to the ABC Poker app. It happened to a bunch of different apps.
So any sort of multiplayer game where you play over time, like Words with Friends or whatever,
Yeah. I don't remember the names of the other apps that it did it to, but you can start new games, and they're fine. It's just any stored games, you lose all the data.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think that probably happened to a lot of poker players.
I mean, like, between this and between the exploits that people have found in the past, you're really kind of playing with fire when you're playing for real money on a platform that was not designed for real money in any sense, and this is sort of the latest thing about that, which is too bad because people seem to enjoy their open face.
Yeah, myself indeed as well. So next week, like I mentioned, we're on MJ, myself. 20 of us are heading on our annual golf tour. Golf trip. We're going to Spokane, Washington. This year, playing the famous Coeur d'Alene Resort course as well. They have an island.
It's probably going to be hot there too, Spokane.
It is. Yeah. It's very hot there. They've got an island green where you got to hit out, and they take a boat out to the island to finish your hole. Like it's a par 3 where you got to hit over water. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I mean, how often? As a guy obviously who doesn't know anything about golf, you must hit it in the water all the time.
A lot.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Well, I think it's kind of a big target, but a lot of people are going to hit it in the water. Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun.
You should do some kind of prop where, like, if you hit it in the water more than once, you actually have to swim to the island to make your putt. You're not allowed to take the boat. You get if you can make it on in 2 shots or fewer, you get to take the boat. You get the boat. Otherwise, you got to swim.
Yeah,
that's my contribution to your golf trip.
That's a good way to throw it in there. I'll run that by the boys. But if any listeners in Spokane who want to go get a beer or kicking around, shoot me a text or a PM, at 2+2, and hopefully we could meet up maybe one night because we'll be out on the town, I'm sure, with that crew. Scott Wilson, another poker person that people might know. He did co-host the show one week. Is also going to be on the tour. Not a lot of other poker players, I don't think, off the top of my head, that people would know. So it's just
cool. So I guess that brings us to the question of whether there will be a Pokercast next. Well, so it's interesting. We mentioned the Daniel Summer Party. yeah. We mentioned Daniel's Summer Party. That is happening on August 1st. We are recording this on the 22nd, so we could slip another show in there. I'd have to do it solo. I don't know how much there is to talk about after today going in next week. I'll think about doing a show, see if I can scrounge up a co-host, but we'll see if there's news and exciting happenings in the world of poker, and maybe I'll do a Tuesday or Wednesday, but the issue is sometimes we cannibalize our own show.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Indeed. We have this week on the show, we've got Jesse Martin,
excited about that.
Yeah, fantastic poker player, mixed game specialist, cash game guy, bracelet winner,
and shitster. And shitster of the World Series.
But
he's a defender of players, and I respect Jesse a ton, a tremendous amount for what he's done and what he's tried to do, in this World Series. And we'll talk about it when we bring him on later on. But he's absolutely championed the cause of the players playing the World Series events. He was the guy who made one of the guys who made a really big stink about the marked cards and the potential cheating that was going on, and lots. I think he's one of these guys who's really interested in the good of the game, and that's why
exactly.
I respect him.
So that's why we're gonna do our World Series of Poker post-mortem this show.
Yeah,
I know it's been a lot of World Series of Poker for the last few weeks.
That's because there's nothing going on in the world.
Right. I mean, that's the centerpiece of our community. So, but we'll probably have 1 or 2 members of the November 9 on between now and when the tournament is finished in November. But we won't. We'll try not to talk a ton about the World Series of Poker moving forward after today. There'll be other things going on. Hopefully, we can find to talk about. We're certainly not going to go back and talk about individual little happenings at the World Series. We're gonna hash that all out today with Jesse and talk about some of the good things, some of the bad things, some of the things we'd like to see fixed, and some of the things we think they did well. So we'll get to that in the. I mentioned a bracelet winner from 2013. I believe he won the 10K deuce to 7, if I remember correctly.
He just won a poker bracelet.
Well, do you think there's 2 types of people who win bracelets? Guys who wear them and guys who don't wear them.
I think there's a lot more of the latter lately.
There is. I think there really is a lot of the guys who don't wear them.
Yeah.
But there certainly are guys. I've seen people wearing World Series of Poker bracelets.
Oh, absolutely.
At the World Series.
Have you seen people under 30 wear World Series?
Yes.
People under... Really?
I have, yeah. I don't want to call people or anything because it's whatever.
No, that's fine. But I'm surprised because I can't remember the last time I saw somebody under like 30, 35 actually wear the bracelet at the table.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about like the ceremony or anything. But
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jesse won a bracelet. Should we have a prop on if Jesse has ever worn the bracelet?
Like,
no?
I mean, other than like at the ceremony or when he gets it to him at the table, he like tries it on.
That's the last time he ever wore it?
Yeah. I mean, like he's...
How about playing cards? Okay. Has he ever worn it playing poker?
Has he playing like more than an hour? Like
No. Has he ever worn it while being dealt in a hand at
one
poker?
hand? The line is one hand?
That's playing poker.
I think
one hand.
an orbit. Because you put it on for like one hand and then you get involved in the hand and you take it. I feel like it has to be an orbit.
It has to be an orbit?
Yeah, it was like an orbit.
Well, we don't know how many people are at the table. He plays short-handed. How about we say 5 hands?
Okay, fine. Yeah, five hands means you're actually wearing it.
Yeah.
Five hands means you're actually wearing it as opposed to like trying it on or seeing how it looks or laughing about it.
Okay, you set the line.
I think it's so unlikely that he ever would have worn it in like a serious sort of way, right? Like I think there's the chance that he put it on as a joke or that like he lost a prop bet and he was forced to wear it. Like, but I'm going to say it's like it's like gotta be like minus 700 that he's
worn it for 5 consecutive hands.
Yeah, or I'll give you.
Sorry, that he hasn't worn it. Minus 700 that he hasn't worn
that he has not worn it. Yeah, I think it's like so incredibly unlikely to worn. So I'll let you pick like minus 700 or plus 500 that he has.
Wait, I get plus 700.
You don't get a juice-free line.
Oh my God!
You set the damn line then. This is what you ask somebody to set the line.
I'm just so used to MJ setting lines and me being able to exploit it.
MJ has a job. That's why MJ has worked for a career. And why I show up everywhere in sweatpants.
Exactly. All right. I will take he has worn it.
It's reasonable.
Plus 500.
It's not like I'm completely out of line.
No, I think the line's pretty good. I think the line's pretty good. I think there's a decent chance that he wore it at maybe a home game to tilt his buddies or something like that.
Oh yeah, you're
so
you're more live. I don't like my side anymore.
I'm going to take the plus 500 for 20, and you can buy out for $20 if you like.
You notice I didn't let you finish the sentence when you said buyout.
No, there's no buyout. Okay, so I got the plus 500, 20 to win 100. Jesse has worn his bracelet at least 5 hands of poker.
5 consecutive hands.
5 consecutive hands of poker. We'll get to that in the second segment with Jesse Martin. In case you missed it.
How did he miss the open goal? 6 by 4, and he comes up 0. Oh, no! Oh, yes! He missed it! He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
In case you missed it, one of the premier poker media outlets, Bluff Magazine, has shut its doors after a couple of years of being owned by Churchill Downs. Bought them, I believe, 3 years ago from Eric Morris, who used to own. Right. I'm not sure if Eric owned it all or whatever, but a big loss to the poker community for Bluff to go down. Some great people over there, Kev Math, Lance Bradley, among them that do a great job and have done a great job in the past. Providing us with content that we all used to consume or we all have consumed. Hopefully, and I can't imagine they're going to go too long in the poker industry without landing on their feet because of how good they are.
Obviously, still unfortunate to see kind of anybody lose their jobs in that sort of way.
Indeed.
And as you just pointed out, I think Bluff as an entity itself did put out quality content. I mean, sort of like any other industry magazine, it still was somewhat limited by the fact that it needs advertising revenue. I mean, so
poker
show.
Media, right?
Yeah, like the show we just talked about at the beginning. We need Pokerstars to be able to do the show. So that obviously, even not in a direct intentional way of saying, okay, we're not going to say this, we're not going to say that. You always have to, it's always in the back of your mind that you can't be 100% objective. And that being said, they still put out some great content. They always found some really good stories. I remember one story I'm thinking of this year, one that Lance, I think he wrote it. It was about the guy who won a bracelet while I think his wife was very ill.
Arash.
That was a really compelling story, and other stories like that that will definitely be missed.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's a terrible time for poker as far as people spending money. Big companies. We don't have the online, we don't have as much as we did in the past of the online component of sites coming in and buying advertising. So it's lean years for sure. But it's a big loss to the community. It's sad to see. I just hope that it's picked up by other if we find some other outlets.
But it does definitely leave a big gap, right? It
does.
Like, I mean, who is going to kind of fill that role?
I don't read Card Player ever. I just have such issues with Card Player.
Pretty terrible. Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to pick up the slack. I mean,
is it Poker News? I mean, a lot of that is very clickbaity at times. I think.
I like the content on Poker News. I don't like the way they deliver it.
Yeah.
I don't like the way they deliver it on their website. I think it's very difficult to navigate the website to find the things that you want to see. It's not my favorite website to go to at all for that reason. But their content is quite good, I think, when I do find the stuff that I'm eventually looking for.
Right. Like, they had a good story this week about how big Joseph McKeon's lead is relative to previous chip leaders. That was interesting. It's quality content, but a lot of times, I think Lon McCarron on Twitter, did you see that tweet by Lon McCarron? Called them out on there was basically a piece that was very clearly an advertising piece, and it was about how well the 888 sponsored players performed at the World Series of Poker. Because as though this is sort of a news story, it's like, well, these 888 players outperformed these other 888 players.
Yeah,
that's not a story.
I don't know. It's hard to call them out for stuff like that because a lot of advertising now
needs to be done,
including it in the content, right? And that's part of the way you deliver advertising. On our show, we do it ourselves. When we talk to Steve about Pokerstars happenings and things going on, it becomes part of the content. So it's a difficult time, and I hope that the people from there. I'm surprised that Churchill Downs would go out of their way, not many years ago in a similar climate of advertising, that they would go out of their way to spend as much money as they did to buy it, and then just kind of go, you know what, we don't need this anymore. Right. They're a huge company. They make a ton of money. It's not like it's the Bluff can't be. It's not a big thing.
Yeah, it seems to be synergistic with their verticals, right?
It does. Yeah. It really does. And then like I said, it can't cost them a lot of money to run that place every month, and just to kind of throw it aside seems like a really strange decision. But people uprooted their lives to go. They're based in Atlanta, and just to be told that that's it, we're done now. So tough decision, and
very sad and very sudden too. It seemed.
Yeah. But I put it on Twitter today. Now that Kev Math no longer is employed by Bluff, and he was doing this job all summer to begin with anyway.
Sure.
There's been issues with the World Series of Poker and how they run their social media campaigns, and Kev Math I think would be perfect for it.
Absolutely.
I think
he would nail it.
He would, and he does. Like I said, he does it already. He did it for free.
The primary criticism of Kev Math is that he tweets too much information.
He'll answer the same question.
The worst thing that you can say about Kev Math is that he gives you too much information, and you can't follow it. That's insane.
Yeah. So hopefully that if they do decide to go a different way with their social media, that Kev Math is one to be consider for that position.
Yeah, and you were away the last time you went golfing. We had Kev Math on the show, and I'm not sure if you listened to the show, but I asked him about is this poker reporting media thing still something that you love?
Yeah.
Or is it just now it's your job and you get paid to do it? And he says I would still the only reason I'm good at this is because I do love to do it. So clearly he loves to do it. I think being associated with the World Series is sort of a no-brainer for them, for him, and it really kind of increases their reputation and their standing because, let's face it, the World Series has made a bunch of idiotic faux pas in their social media over the last 3 or 4 years.
Now, the one thing
it's shocking, honestly, how bad they are sometimes.
We'll get to that with Jesse because I think he's got an opinion on that and some of the stuff that happened this week. But selfishly, as I think how good of a job he would do the World Series of Poker, I think we'd lose a lot from Kevmath talking about the entire poker community rather than
the
just the
World
World
Series is only 6 weeks a year. I mean...
For sure.
And there's not that much going on outside of the World Series.
But they're not going to hire him and then let him go talk about competing tours. Like, if he gets a full-time job at the World Series of Poker with the circuit and all the other stuff.
If they're smart, they will. Because the reason why Kevmath has this...
What did you say, if they're smart? Sorry.
Right.
Just wanted to catch that.
Yeah, exactly. But the reason why he has such the following that he does is because he's considered the go-to source, right?
Right.
So if you follow Kevmath, it's because he gives you that information, not because he's a mouthpiece for anybody in particular. It's because they
can just block him for the rest of the year.
Yeah. That's it. Go.
Yeah.
Way to bring that full circle, Ross.
Anyway, RIP Bluff Magazine. Sorry. And maybe it gets spun off. Maybe somebody picks it up for a song and continues it on. We can only hope that might happen. In case you missed it, the live odds for the November 9 are out. Yeah. This is it's a prop on a lot of sports betting, offshore sports betting websites that bring poker players in to bet on their favorite November 9er, plus then maybe blast off a bunch of money on some other sport, hopefully. That's why they put these odds out. Yeah. I don't think they take a lot of action. It's not like they're going to take $10,000 bets or anything.
No. Even on Pinnacle, I see like $500 bets sometimes at the most. Yeah.
So they're not going to take big action on it, but they put it out and they're kind of fun to talk about.
Yeah.
This year, I noticed on Ladbrokes, Johnny Chan is 33-1.
That seems like great value considering that did Johnny Chan even play the main event? I don't even know.
I didn't see any kind of reports about it. Johnny Chan, of course, they've made the mistake here, and some guy who's just entering it clearly saw Chan. Patrick Chan, of course, made the final table and went, "Oh, that looks like Johnny Chan."
I think you're wrong. And I'll tell you why I don't think this is happening, and I think it's actually significantly more nefarious than that because, Patrick Chan actually has more chips than Federico Butteroni, and Butteroni is only listed at 25-1. So why would you give Patrick Chan 33-1? Unless you think he's substantially worse, but there's no reason to believe that he is. So I actually think they're just being shady and thinking that other people will not realize it's not Johnny Chan at the table and put in a bet drawing dead, right? Because you can't bet the other way. You can't bet Johnny Chan will not win the main event because you would lay 1,000-1 on that.
It's weird though because anybody who bet on it and put $10 or $100 whatever on Johnny Chan by accident, thinking, they hadn't seen the November 9 maybe. Oh, Johnny Chan I'll bet on him. Then they go to watch it because people like to sweat their bet when they make it, and then all of a sudden they're like, where the fuck is Johnny Chan? He's not in this tournament.
Exactly.
And they're going to just have to reverse the bet.
I don't think they will.
They would have to.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how ethical the sports book is. And I guess a lot of the, if you're talking about Ladbrokes, you're talking about actually a legitimate,
publicly traded company.
Yeah, reputable thing. So, yeah, it's
they've got Owen O'Day
right.
9-2.
Really?
Yeah, they have Owen O'Day at 9-2.
What are they?
It's like
what?
It's so strange. Like, how do you mix up Owen O'Day with somebody? Anyway, so where we got these are from an odds compiler called DonBest.
Yeah,
DonBest.com. This is a website that compiles odds from many offshore sports books, and they'd listed this as the props for this, and it's just strange that they would. The first thing I thought was Johnny Chan is Patrick Chan, and because they don't list Patrick Chan,
right? Yeah.
So I thought, they just missed him and put Johnny, but the Owen O'Day one makes no sense. So that one was just on Sporting Bet. The Owen O'Day, Johnny Chan was at Ladbrokes. The people that are actually at the final table and have
people that you can bet on and not be drawing dead,
right? Joe McKeon is 13-8. which I thought was interesting. Yeah, he's got a big chip lead, but is he better than a 2-1 favorite?
Well, of course not. They're just taking a ton of juice on these, right?
They are, and yeah, because he's got to be what, 2.5?
Because I think he's as what 31% of the chips. So yeah, I mean, it's a little worse than 2-1, right? Even if you say like, oh, he's a big stack and he'll be a bully, he's not going to be appreciably better than 2-1.
Right. So he's 13-8. Svestern 9-2, 4.5-1. Both Neil Blumenfield and Pierre Neuville. People were giving us a hard time giving me a hard time about how I pronounce Neuville. Is Neuville? Neuville?
It would probably be
Neuville. Neuville.
I don't know. We don't speak French. Right?
Neil and Pierre are 13-2. Max Steinberg 7-1. Thomas Canuli 12-1. Josh Beckley, who I have in our pool, he's my last hope in our last longer, 14-1. And Butteroni's 25-1. So if you want to drop a couple of bucks on the people who are actually playing that tournament, I
think Canoli is the Canuli.
Canuli
is the only guy there who's kind of close to the percentage of chips. Actually, Josh Beckley has 6% of the chips, so at 14-1, he's not too much worse than his chip EV. Everybody else, of course, is a terrible bet, and you should not bet on any of them.
Do not
basically. Bet these. If you like money, do not bet on any of these. Butteroni has 3.2% of the chips.
You should put out your own line and then just take action.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you're not putting out lines the other way, like this guy will not win. The thing is that
they should be not win.
Yeah, Pinnacle will do this. They usually only do it maybe for like the final three or whenever the second day is.
Right.
And then they'll go, will this guy win, and then the yes line and a no line, and there'll be a pretty decent amount of juice on that. But it's a much more, I feel like, honest way than just saying like you can bet on these guys, but you can't bet against them.
Because they can just build in ridiculous juice.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
You can see the juice the other way.
Exactly. And you can see the juice this way, but you actually have to do the math yourself.
Not a ton of In Case You Missed It stuff this week, of course, because people are just kind of getting home from the World Series of Poker.
It's the World Series of hangover.
It's the hangover. So there are just a couple more things to get to. In case you missed it, proposed legislation in Russia looks to fund this is poker legislation, is looking to fund the Russian Chess Federation.
So they're going to take poker dollars and make people good at chess?
I guess, like the
this is like a Jen Shahadi wet dream.
Yeah, she's loving this. The head of lotteries or the gaming or whatever in the Russian Federation has proposed legislation that would tax and regulate online gaming in Russia. No Russian drop? We don't have a Russian drop? I don't know if we do. Many zeros is not.
We just played the whole Alexander interview again, and nobody would complain.
So
my wife.
Yeah, we've got a situation where this could, I don't know if it's ring-fenced or there doesn't seem to be a lot of information out there exactly how it would go down, but, it's just weird. Like, leave it to Russia to tax and regulate an industry and then say, okay, yeah, all that money has to go to, help with, something like, well, not complete, but how generally when governments regulate online gaming, the money goes into the coffers to pay for, all the government services that people get.
Or that's the general sort of idea. So it's like, we'll put a new tax on gasoline and put that towards, whatever, wind power or something like something that's kind of related to the thing that's creating one problem, right? So like, if you could say like proposed poker legislation, it will
subsidize gambling anonymous,
right?
Or something like that.
Even schools or education or something like that.
Yeah, weird that they chose chess to do that with. Obviously, one of Putin's buddies maybe has a vested interest in the chess program or something. Like, how they would all work over there. All these oligarchs get to lead their industry.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's going to be an online poker czar, I guess, and do quite well. I don't know how. The Russian online poker scene very robust. It's one of the biggest markets.
Russians love poker. Yeah.
So hopefully it's not ring fenced. Hopefully, it's going to be part of the larger community that we are still involved with,
and hopefully it doesn't block Pokerstars.
Exactly.
So we'll sort of see how that shakes up, because obviously Russia has sort of made overtures against the idea that they don't think Pokerstars should be operating there. Yeah. So we'll see.
In case you missed it, the World Series of Poker released demographic information about the World Series of Poker main event.
Yep.
And how the
This is one of the good things they did on social media this week.
Yeah. And what they did was they broke down the main event people from country, from or in gender, in age. How many percentage of women in the main event? Roscoe, what do you think? Percentage of women in the main event. What do you think it was?
Set a line.
9.
9. Really high. Jeez, I wish it was 9.
You're way. I think historically it's been something like 6.
Has it really been that high?
I feel like it has been as high as 6 in the past. This year, the World Series said 252 women entered out of the 6,420. Yeah, is that the number?
3.9%.
So it's 3.9%. So that's definitely, I guess, down from I think what it used to be. But I always thought it was about 6% back in the day. I could be wrong.
The average age of women in the main event, Roscoe?
34.
41.7, which shocked me.
I guess there would be probably more older women.
I guess they can afford maybe. That's the way to go. Average age of the men, Roscoe?
Average age? I'll go 33.
39.6. Again, I was surprised by that.
I'm not most surprised, but I feel like I see more older men playing the main event than older women.
Remember Daniel's table?
Honest.
Did you see Daniel's first table?
So
he was
Daniel
by
tweeted
far the
image
youngest.
of a bunch of 60-year-old guys at the table. Generally, older people have more money than younger people, right? Especially disposable income, that kind of thing. But I'm surprised I don't remember seeing as many older women. But of course, it's a small sample size because with 200, when they're 3% of the field, that's literally one woman every 3 tables.
Yeah.
So you can much sample size.
Indeed. Well, in the age thing too, like one guy will skew it so much compared to, because when you think of age, you think, well, 28, but that's really only like 7 years more than the minimum.
Right.
But you get a guy who's 90.
A couple guys in their 80s and 90s and 70s even.
Yeah.
The distribution, the skew is not a normal distribution.
80 nations were represented at the World Series of Poker. Many of them did not have tax treaties with the USA, so some people were making questionable decisions. Roscoe, how many Canadians do you think played the main event?
Percentage or number?
Number.
That's a number. So
6,420 entrants. How many Canadians?
From the true north?
712.
You're terrible. 323. This is fun.
323 made it the second most populous nation in the main event. Ross, what was the third most populous nation by representation? We're just going to crush him.
Ross on the spot.
I think he's pretty live on this one.
Canada?
Canada's second.
Canada's second. USA is number 1. Canada's number 2.
That's a trick question. Number 3 would be... the UK?
Hey, ding! That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's really the correct job. Then it goes from there. It goes France, Germany, Russia, Brazil, Australia, Italy, and Ireland.
I thought it was a toss-up between the UK and Mexico, just in terms of
proximity.
Traveled.
Mexico,
pretty far down, I think.
Yeah, Mexico doesn't make. Well, their little pie graph here isn't very good because it doesn't have an other one. It kind of implies that the top 9 countries represented all, but Mexico does not make the top 10 in terms of countries represented.
What was number 4 again?
So, it was the United States with 4,778, Canada with 323, UK 279, France with 84, so there's a big drop off there, Germany 82, Russia 76, Brazil 68, Australia 67, Italy 51, and then rounding out the top 10 is Ireland at 42. So, whatever Mexico had, it was less than 42.
Idiot from Northern Europe.
I would have bet that, and I guess the UK number is a bit surprising to me, given that you don't see a lot of the big name guys like in the last few years.
Yeah.
The UK.
I see a lot. I played with a lot of young British guys at the World Series, and they are one of the countries that have a tax treaty. I believe
they do.
When you come over, you're
Germany,
not taxed.
UK,
and the UK is generally very friendly a place to reside. You remember, was it Eastgate that moved to the UK?
Taxation,
yeah, for taxation is beneficial. So that probably makes a lot of sense for the UK to be the number 3 country.
Indeed. We have a strategy sponsor for this show. It is CrushLivePoker.com, Bart Hansen's website. He teaches you how to beat the live games and focuses on that. This week we have a strategy minute. Roscoe, what is the CLP strategy minute this week?
This week it is about choosing the game that you play in so that
It warmed my feelings at night.
It's about the EV of happiness.
The EV of happiness.
The EV of happiness. That sounds like a fun poker book.
Sacrificing EV for happiness? Is that the concept?
No, it's the EV of happiness. It's maximizing your happiness EV.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Maybe we should just listen to it.
Let's do that. All right. Here is the CrushLivePoker.com strategy minute for the 2+2 Pokercast. Coming up after the break, we've got Jesse Martin. He's going to join us and talk about the postmortem of the World Series of Poker and things that he liked and didn't like, and his World Series of Poker too. So you're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hey everybody, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com, and welcome to another edition of the 2+2 Strategy Minute. This week I want to talk about the EV of happiness. I think the EV of happiness is underrated a lot of times when it comes to poker players, especially younger poker players. And what I'm specifically talking about is not always playing in the biggest game. Personally, I play a lot of 5-10. And people oftentimes will ask me, hey, why don't you play 10-20? I play at the Commerce mostly, and I say, well, I might be able to make 80 or 85% of my hourly rate at 5-10 without any stress. And when I go up and play 10-20, I'm put to decisions. The variance might be 3 or 4 times higher. I go on losing streaks, and, that makes me not want to come into the casino. It makes me unhappy away from the casino. When I play at 5-10, I'm relaxed. It doesn't really affect my life outside of poker. And sometimes I actually get to play even more hours than I would at a higher level because I'm motivated and I'm winning more often. So not only am I living a happier life, I actually might win more money in the long run. So you have to think about these types of situations when you're evaluating what game you want to play and just basically your overall happiness. Now let's get back to the Pokercast.
Attention everyone not named Alan Kessler. Have someone you would love to appear on the Pokercast? Have someone you don't want to hear again on the Pokercast? Head on over to the Suggest a Guest thread in the Pokercast forum at 2plus2.com, and Adam will do his best to make you happy. P.S. Chainsaw, you can post too.
Hi guys, it's Mike from ProfessionalPoker.com and the 2+2 store with some great news for our Pokerstars players. You can now use your frequent player points to purchase gift cards available from ProfessionalPoker.com. These same cards will also work at the 2+2 store. The gift cards come in increments of $25 and $50, and you can apply multiple gift cards per order. So now you can get the books, videos, and ebooks from all the major publishers using just your FPPs. So check out the gift card section of the PokerStars FPP store and pick up the poker training material you've had your eye on for a while at the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com.
At the 800 table, UTG min raises to 8K with 32 big blind effective. Cutoff calls with 70 big blinds, and I call with 10-9 of spades on the button with a stack of 400K. Both blinds fold. Flop comes Jack 8-6 rainbow with 1 spade. UTG bets 14K, cutoff calls, and I overcall. The turn is the ace of spade, giving me a flush draw. UTG keeps on betting, 32K this time. Cutoff calls again, and I raise to 90K. After tanking for a few minutes, UTG lets it go. Cutoff takes even longer before folding too.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Hey guys, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com. Whether you're a recreational player who wants to compete at the tables, or you're a professional and you want to increase your win rate, the material that I've produced at CrushLivePoker.com will make you a better poker player. Act now and you can subscribe for free by using the coupon code TPC11. That's TPC for the PokerCast 11 and get your first month free.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. T, our guest this week is the 2013 World Series of Poker 10K Deuce to 7 single draw champ, cash game pro, coming off what seems like another successful World Series of Poker, tournament-wise at least, this year, with 5 cashes for close to $250,000, including a runner-up in the 10K limit. He is, of course, Jesse Martin. Jesse, welcome back to the Pokercast.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot. Nice to be back.
Before we get into too much, I want to. Hopefully, you can settle a prop bet Terrence and I have. Are you up for it?
Sure.
In the first segment, we made a prop on if you've ever worn your World Series of Poker bracelet while playing poker. Now,
five consecutive hands.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay.
The stipulation being you have to have worn it for at least 5 consecutive hands. Have you ever worn that bracelet playing poker?
No, I have not.
Oh, thank God. Good. I mean, the line was minus 700, so that you had not worn it. So I was laying some odds there, but I felt like I wasn't sure. I felt that at worst you might have worn it because you'd like lost a prop bet or as a joke or something.
Like in a home game. Like I got 5 to 1, Jesse. I thought I was getting it in good with 5 to 1. Just so you might have worn it as a joke.
I could see myself wearing it at like a home game with friends. I mean, that never did happen, but I mean that's definitely a possibility. But,
well, maybe you did get it in good.
No.
The only time
I definitely never have worn it playing poker. I've barely worn it at all. I don't even know if I know how to use the class. I wore it at least once for a picture at the house that we lived in. We had this big throne in 2013. There was like 5 of us who were all playing tournaments, and we all agreed no one could sit in the throne unless you won a bracelet. So once I won a bracelet, I got to sit in the throne and put the bracelet on. I think that was about it for ever wearing it. Well, but I do bring it to Vegas every summer, and I definitely love the fact that I have it, and I like to look at it, but not wearing it.
So you bring it for motivation and put it like beside your bed or something?
Something like that. This year I had like kind of like a little, motivation, I guess. Yeah, just kind of put it in vision of where I am a lot during the day, and maybe put some sort of hippie crystal and a candle and the World Series poker bracelet and whatever else I can find for motivation. Yeah.
I think it's good to know that you haven't melted it down first, but I think the only real place where it's acceptable, I think, to wear this thing is when you're defending the following year.
That's okay.
I don't have a problem with guys wearing it then. Like if you're like you won the Deuce to 7 2013, if you wore it in 2014 at that one, that seems like
until you bust,
reasonable.
And then the second you bust,
that's the last time you ever wear it.
It's got to go.
Yeah. I don't know. Jesse,
that seems okay. I think maybe if you're Twombly and you've won it 2 years in a row, maybe
that's pretty badass.
Both of them.
Yeah, that would be good. All right, before we get on to some of the bigger issues, Jesse, with the World Series of Poker, how did your summer go? I mentioned you won $250,000 in tournaments. I know you're a cash game guy. Give us a rundown of how, if you're successful or if your summer was successful.
My summer was, I'd say, success. Probably the minimum amount of success that I would still call successful. You'd say that I did cash for about that much in tournaments, but I also had about $195,000 in buy-in. So, but that's still nice. A nice $50,000 profit. But over, playing nonstop poker for 6 weeks, it's good, but not as much as I was hoping for. And I also did I played the 1,000, 2,000 game in Bobby's room a couple times, and I had one really good session where it was the first time I ever got to play with Doyle, which was a lot of fun, and I made a couple huge stud 8 or better hands against him and showed a profit in that session. And overall, I did okay in cash games too, so it was good. When I go out there and put that much effort into playing poker and trying to do my best in everything, and I hope to do a little better, but I did okay.
Wow, I got a million questions to ask you about playing Bobby's room in 1,000, 2,000. I don't know if you're up for it, but how much your action did you have? Were you nervous? How cool was it?
Who else was in the game other than Doyle?
Who was in the game, yeah.
Who was in the game? Nick Schulman for sure was in the game. Lyle Berman was in the game for the first probably 2/3 of the game. Hastings was in the game at the end. Abe Mosseri. Pretty standard lineup. It wasn't anything that was over the top or anything. My name was on the board. I was playing the 300, 600 next door, and I got called, and it seemed good enough to play. And I probably sold somewhere between somewhere between a half and 1/3 of my action. So I was probably playing 600, 1,200, or maybe 650, 1,300. I'm not exactly sure what it ended up being, but something around that. It was a lot of fun. I'm used to playing with a lot of those guys. I'm used to playing high stakes. So it wasn't like I was, it wasn't like maybe how I would have felt 4 years ago playing in there, where I thought maybe that was a insurmountable thing that I would never, play 1,000, 2,000 in Bobby's room, which is kind of how it, has, felt like when I was, just grinding up the limits. But it was definitely fun, and I think the fact that I really, for whatever reason, have never played a cash game with Doyle, and so that part alone was fun and interesting, and I got to play with him one or two more times the rest of the summer, and he's just a great guy to play with. If you can tell a story to make him laugh or something like that, it's just, while you're playing 1,000, 2,000 in Bobby's room, that's always a lot of fun. So, it was pretty cool. Although he did kind of hate me because I made 2 flush and low. He was ahead of me 2 different stud 8 hands where, he had trips or something, and I made the flush and low on 7th, and 2 hands in the same stud 8 round. So I don't know if you love that part.
Well, it's definitely, like you say, got to be a bucket list item to be able to play high stakes with Doyle. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to do that. What was the mix? Yeah. And you're one of the best mixed game players out there. But were there particular games where you felt you had a big edge? And it's okay to say all of them if you think that's true.
No, I think it was the exact same 10-game mix that we played in the 50K this year.
Okay.
So the Stars 8 games, so horse, and then Kadugi, No Limit 2-7. I think I know at least one of the sessions we played pot limit triple draw with a $30,000 cap.
Wow.
So that's not that's a game that I'm not even. I wouldn't necessarily say I have an edge against the field.
Well, you wouldn't usually even go to the river, right? And there usually won't be betting behind on the river, or unless I'm totally mistaken, because that's not super. You're playing 500 to 1,000 blinds, right?
No, I think that they stripped the blinds down, so I think it's 300. Or no, actually, you know what it is? It's 200, 300 blinds. So there's actually a lot of play to it.
Okay.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would say no, you're not usually going to the river. The interesting thing is in that game, it's become kind of standard in ring games that if you're in a limit triple draw game, if you're a card ahead, if you're drawing 1, the other guy's drawing 2, that you're always going to bet when you're a card ahead. But in that game, that becomes a little. I'm not exactly sure what you're supposed to be doing, what is standard. So I was kind of messing around with some of that stuff, especially if you're out of position. If you're drawing 1, the other guy's drawing 2, after the first draw, if you just, fire out, 1,500, the size of the pot, without looking at your cards, he's probably going to call you no matter what. But now you give him a chance to raise you, And if you miss, like you put yourself in a really tough situation, or even if you miss and he doesn't raise you, now the pot's bloated and you're out of position. So I was messing around with, maybe checking that spot sometimes, but really I was just kind of playing tight and I know the equities, and I played a lot of deuce to seven in general, so I'm not completely lost in the game. But as far as some of the tricks that, a guy like, Nick Schulman or someone who's played that game a lot more might know, I really was behind the eight ball for that part of it. So I was just trying to stay out of too much trouble. It was definitely an interesting game to play. Pretty much, it wasn't my first time, but maybe my second or third time at those stakes against those players. But just one of the 11 games in the mixes, just trying to get through it.
When you say the game was good enough, do you mind talking about, and if you're not comfortable with it, I get it, no problem. Do you mind talking about who you think maybe that made it good enough, or what made it good enough?
Well, I'm not completely comfortable talking about it. One thing I will say is that Lyle Berman is not a professional poker player, but the thing about Lyle that everyone at least says, and I've experienced it playing with him twice, is that while he's not a professional poker player, he is there, to win, and he seems to win. I know for sure he won this summer, and he seems, while he does drive the action and he might do, some things a little unconventional or a little action driven, like he's not out there giving his money away at all. So, he's kind of one of the guys that like helps the game go, but doesn't necessarily, lose money in the game. Or maybe sometimes he does, but he certainly didn't this summer. I was feeling at the time pretty confident in my mixed games. And part of it is just getting in there and seeing if I think I have an edge in the game, just so then I can maybe play it again in the future. If I do feel like I'm comfortable and have an edge in the game, but as long as the mix, as long as the lineup isn't, sometimes you look over there and it's John Minetti and Mike the Hat, who most people might not know at home, but he's one of the best players. Mike Glick from Atlantic City, and Tommy Hang, and Nick Schulman. If it's like those four just sitting there playing, then I might not play. But as long as it's like a decent mix of different players, and some of them might be stronger big bet players, some of them might be stronger mixed game players, and stuff like that. I would normally at least sit down at the beginning of the summer and take my shot and see how I'm feeling, I guess.
My last question would be, what goes into your decision for how much to buy into that game? Maybe if you could talk about that a little bit. When you look at the stacks and who...
Well, so all the big bet games, the PLO and the Nolan and Hold'em and the Deuce 7 Nolan the single draw, they all have a cap. So it doesn't really matter what you buy.
I didn't understand they all had a cap. I see. Okay.
Yeah, they all have a cap. So you could buy in for like the smallest amount and then play off the cap, and then if you're losing, like you get to short stack it. But I don't normally do that. I guess if anything, the only thing that goes into my thinking is because I'm not as much of a regular in the game as some of the guys, like I want to have enough money in front of me that I don't think people are just going to be taking shots at me because they think I'm, playing on like, one small bullet or something like that. But for the most part, I don't think too much about what I buy into that game. But I think I bought in for 90,000, 80,000, something like that, just kind of grab some chips from my box and put them on the table and hope not to lose them.
You were playing in the 600 game, you said? Is that right?
Yeah. That the normal game I play is 400, 800 mixed game, or I think that day we were playing 300, 600. It was the Billy Baxter mix, so a lot of low ball games. But normally I like playing I really Elliot Lesra and I have a very similar idea of what makes up a good mixed game. A bunch of the stud games in there and some of the draw games and all that. So his 400, 800 game that he also won in this summer, but it kind of is kind of started by him and is kind of the games that he likes to play. That's my normal game when I'm out in Vegas and I'm not playing tournaments. Although this summer I played so many tournaments that I probably only got in 10 or 11 cash game sessions the whole summer.
Now, do you find people just stumbling into the 400, 800, celebrities or just rich guys in general, or is it just like you go 3 days playing against the same guys and then maybe somebody will stumble in?
Right. It's certainly a lot of familiar faces. There's really no other way to say it. I mean, I would say anyone who stumbles in is probably going to stumble into the lower games, like 100, 200 mixed game, or even the higher games. They might see Doyle and Johnny Chan sitting there and want to play there. So, the 400, 800 limit is a lot of the same people, but it's but you'll also get it's the World Series, so all these poker players are out there, and you might get a guy who won the 10K Omaha, who now wants to play 400, 800, or maybe didn't have the bankroll before. People taking shots, or no limit player who's learning the game and has money, or there's a lot of different ways to find yourself with an edge in that limit. Just because it's a comfortable limit for some people to play who have money and aren't as familiar with it. And also, you're not playing against as many of the super elite players. So even some of the regulars, as long as you're sharp and you're playing your best, you can find an edge there too.
So you mentioned that you only played about 10 cash games during the series. How did you decide what to prioritize? Whether you wanted to prioritize World Series events, or if the cash game was really good, you stated it and you said, screw it, I'm going to skip the World Series today. How do you go about? Do you just decide that day or on the fly, or do you give preference in any way to anything?
The way I have done it in the past. And I think 2016 is going to be up for debate for how I approach it. But up until 2013, I was definitely much more worried about cash games. But 2013, I had a pretty good year in cash games, and I was feeling better than ever about my mixed games. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to go into the summer, start playing all these tournaments. If it starts going well, I'm just going to keep at it. Or if I'm enjoying it, I'm going to keep at it. And am I maybe giving up some money in hourly? That's possible for sure, but I just kind of want to give myself a shot to play the full schedule and see what happens. And what I found is that I enjoy it mostly because I really like the sleep schedule. And I know some people might say, "Oh, but you're playing till 3 a.m." But I do think there is problems with how late we play. But what I do like is that I know that no matter what, I get to go to sleep and wake up the next morning, and I know when I have to play. So the problem with the cash games during the World Series, or really any time, is you play and the game's good, but say you quit at 4 in the morning and you're in a good game, while you're sleeping, half your mind is thinking about, okay, I need to wake up and get back in that game, and before the game fills back up, or I need to beat this person to the casino before the game fills up. You're constantly just on this cash game schedule that you kind of have to monitor, and you kind of just have to stay on top of it. And I do that during the LAPC, and it's okay, and that's what I'm out there to do, and I just play cash games around the clock for 35 days or whatever it is. But during the World Series, the structure of the tournaments, I kind of actually like just having that once a year.
You kind of know when your day is and when it starts and when it ends.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I just kind of go in, and I'm just this year I was just going to play the tournaments. I was just going to, if I busted a tournament, I might go take a quick break and then just enter the next tournament. And really the only time I'm going to play a cash game is if I know that, say I bust the tournament on a Monday, and I know at Tuesday at 4 p.m. is the 10K no limit deuce. So I don't want to register the evening Monday tournament because I know I want to play that Tuesday tournament, so maybe I'll just go play cash games for the night and then rest up for the tournament, the 10K the next day. So that's really the only time that I was fitting in sessions. And then also after I bust the main event, I usually just put in 3 or 4 more sessions. Usually there's games going, and they can be pretty good.
Before we leave the mixed game topic, Jesse, we were joking with Andrew Barber a couple weeks ago, and he and I are both Omaha 8 or better specialists, and we were joking about the fact that everybody who you talk to when they're a mixed game player, if you ask them what their best game is, it's always Omaha 8 or better. Do you find that too?
Funny. Well, I heard that interview, and I've also heard other people say that, and I agree with it for the most part, and I think it's true. Although I am pretty I wouldn't say notorious, but I'm pretty consistent with saying that Omaha 8 or better is my worst game in the mix.
Oh, really?
It just is. I don't think I'm terrible at the game, which I guess maybe goes along with the whole thing, but I'm kind of one of those guys who I learned Omaha 8 or better late. A lot of the games I've had like a little bit of a lot of studying or coaching for. Omaha 8 or better, I had a little coaching, and then like I'm pretty good friends with Mark Gregorich, so I run hands by him. But for the most part, I just play the game pretty solid and tight, and I think it's a winning strategy in most lineups. But I certainly don't think like Andrew Barber, for example. I'm not sure what he's doing out there a lot of the times with his Omaha better starting hands and stuff. But from what I've heard, I played with him during that tournament a little bit, but never beyond that. But from what I've heard, he's a genius at post flop Omaha 8 or better, and knows how to navigate his way around. And I definitely would not put myself in that category. I'm kind of I feel like I've gotten pretty good at the stud games, and definitely my best two games are limit hold'em and deuce of 7 triple draw and Omaha 8 or better. I don't mind it in the mix, but I'm just kind of sitting there playing my ace threes and ace deuces and rougher hands from around back, and just kind of playing solid and getting through the game is really how I approach it for the most part. And I'd love to improve that at some point, but so far it hasn't necessarily gone beyond that.
It's cool that you have an open mind about it, because a lot of people will look at what Andrew does and go, oh, he's an idiot, he's a fish, what's he doing there with that hand? And I think a lot of it stems from playing shorthanded and playing online shorthanded, right, and playing 3, 4, 5 hands, getting to play 5-handed, getting to play those marginal hands so much more often, and trying to figure out where you're comfortable and where you're not with certain hands. But a lot of people will just look at him and go, the guy's an idiot, that kind of thing,
Yeah, and to be completely honest with you, when you see a guy in a 10K event limp 7-7-5-3 with one suit under the gun and get to the river in this like really weird spot, it's hard not to think that sometimes. But I've had the benefit of like talking to some of his good friends who just tell me that like this guy, for whatever reason, like has a knack for Omaha 8 or better. And while I'm still not sure if he's going to be able to turn a profit with that hand, like I know he's going to have a much better shot of it than I am. So yeah, Omaha Pilo and Omaha 8 or better. Just I just never felt super like comfortable and like clairvoyant in those games, and I assume that he does. So
it's interesting you mentioned those two games, because I think those two games. And I'm going to go through the list in my head, but I think those two games you can really do quite well playing, like you said, playing tight, tight aggressive type thing. Those games where you kind of narrow those marginal hands out of your range, and you can get away with playing less than, but maybe not so much in other games. Where if you're playing tight, you're giving up too much.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you're a mixed game player and you're and if you have one or two games that are your weakest in an 8 or 10 game mix, usually it's okay just to play tight and you'll be okay. I mean, Terrence would never be caught dead, folding 8-4 suited to a cutoff raise and limit hold'em. But if you're not that great at limit hold'em and the cutoff raises, and as Joe Cassidy, and you're there because you feel you're the best stud player in the world, you can just fold that type of hand if you don't know what you're going to do, in post-flop situations. So I kind of think for the most part, it's pretty universal. Maybe some of the stud games, if you're never like anti-stealing and that kind of stuff, you might be in a lot of trouble.
Speaking of Limit Hold'em, we mentioned your tournament results. You came second in the 10K Limit Hold'em this year to Ben Yu. Professor Ben takes it down. Terrence finished 9th. Did you knock him out? Who knocked you out?
I can't remember. I think Ben knocked me out.
I was very happy about it. But
I think it was Ben.
It was me.
Yeah, I think it was Ben. I raised with Ace 4. I raised the kings, and he defended with Ace 4, and then I think he flopped a wheel draw and hit it, or something like that. But I enjoyed watching the heads. After I went home and I licked my wounds and I cried a little bit, and I watched you guys playing on the stream heads up. Very, very entertaining. High level limit hold'em that you guys played. So definitely well deserves. The final table of almost every 10K is pretty tough, but obviously
has Anthony Zeno played a lot of limit hold'em?
He hadn't, but it's interesting. I played with Anthony on day 2 and of course on day 3, and I noticed him progressively getting better.
Is that right?
at it because I don't think he played it a lot, and I think on day 3 he played better than day 2, which is pretty amazing in itself when somebody actually plays. Go ahead. What were your thoughts, Jesse?
Yeah. Oh no, I didn't play with Anthony a lot during that tournament, but yeah, no, I had a lot of fun in that tournament. Limit Hold'em, I've probably done the best in that game throughout my poker career, but I still have never and still don't really think of myself as good as the very best players. I think I'm like the tier below. But for whatever reason, and I'm sure some of it was being in the right situations, but I just felt like I was making some good decisions, and I was trying to do my best to mimic someone like Terrence or someone like the very best players who are super balanced and just really expert players. And I was trying to do my best to put myself in that mindset, and I half pulled it off. So that was really a lot of fun, and nice to see that I still have it a little bit in Limit Hold'em, I guess.
I think you definitely still have it.
Let's move on to the bigger question, the post-mortem of the World Series of Poker, if you will. This year was interesting because it had some things that people really loved about it, and it had some downsides as well that people didn't like. So let's first talk about some of the things that were the positives from the World Series of Poker this year. And I think the first one we should talk about is the continued effort by the World Series of Poker to attract casual players to the WSOP MTT experience. I'm talking, of course, about the Colossus, the Monster Stacks, the 777, lower buy-in events to bring people to the series that might not have come before. And I think it's pretty clear that this was a giant success by the size of the fields. Jesse, you would concur?
I would definitely concur, and I think probably one of the reasons you guys had me on is because I haven't really been shy about being critical of some things that the World Series of Poker does, and a lot of that is out of love because, I really do love the World Series of Poker and I love playing the whole schedule, but definitely I would say the big thing to come away on the positive end from this summer is those that effort to bring the more casual players and to get more players acclimated to the Rio and comfortable with coming in and playing a World Series of Poker event. I think they did a great job with it. My personal complaint was that, and I actually mentioned this to Jack before the series, and I didn't think I had much argument behind it, so I didn't push it, but they kept on scheduling, the Colossus was up against the 10K Deuce, and the Millie Maker was up against the 50K Players Championship, so I didn't get to really play any of these special tournaments, maybe by design.
Right.
They weren't worried about the higher limit players playing, but yeah, it's unbelievable that they can get in 22,500 people to come in and play a World Series of Poker bracelet event, and besides the payouts, which I think were a pretty big issue, and not even the payout structure, I don't know. I wasn't really sure what the problem with the payout structure was. Some people might not like it, but it was posted beforehand. But the actual physical, some guy wins, $1,600 and has to wait 2.5 hours in line to get paid out. And I think that's going to be, that can't happen again because that's going to deter someone from wanting to come play, I would think. I mean, I certainly would not want that. I mean, for me, I cashed 5 times this summer. I kind of just build them up in my backpack, and at some point I see the line short, and I can go get out my cash outs. But someone coming in just to play the Colossus and has a flight out, Tuesday morning, you got to get those guys paid and have money in their pocket, and have them not have any sour taste.
Indeed.
But it's amazing that they can pull those tournaments off, and I hope they keep doing it.
Yeah, and not just those tournaments, the size of those, but we're talking about a 6-week span of putting people through tournaments, the dealer issues, the overlapping. I mean, we kind of just assume like it's going to happen every year that they can put on this kind of event, and we take it for granted a bit. But it is an amazing undertaking to put that many poker players through, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. Yes, there are bumps in the road, and we'll talk about those. But in the big scheme of things, it's a fantastic undertaking. It's a huge thing to pull off every year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, there must have been some issues along the way that we don't even know about, because just even me playing the main event, and I happened to end up in the pavilion room, which we kind of had the cash game floor guys, and they were nice guys, and I wouldn't single any of them out, but they just were a little less familiar with running a tournament. So I can't imagine when we triple that number of extra staff that we're putting on running a World Series of Poker bracelet event. There must have been some hiccups along the way, but I guess not enough to overshadow what they pulled off. So that's pretty cool.
The numbers, of course, are down somewhat, not entries, and we'll talk about that later, but just general turnout for a lot of the events. Now, the poker community in itself is in a decline. Yeah. And I would have expected to look at the World Series the last couple of years, considering we've gone through some lean years in poker, and looked at the turnouts, and I would have expected it to be worse than it was. And I think that is a lot of credit goes to Caesars for putting on this event. I think it's no small part in them keeping the game better than really it should be, given the poker environment.
Yeah, this is one I'm not really sure about. Like, I meant to put in a little more research to this, but I think I heard that like the Venetian tournaments were up this summer, and possibly like one of the other main venues that like holds tournaments mirroring the World Series of Poker were up. So I'm not convinced that the poker economy is any further down than it was a year or two ago. It seems like the cash games, if anything, are possibly on like a small little uptick. I know like the Bobby's Room game is on a small little uptick, like where they're playing it more. But yeah, I mean, regardless, it's great to see that people are still coming out to play. But a 10% decrease in some of these 10K events, and I don't think that is any fault of the World Series of Poker. Especially because I thought last year, 2014, if you had me on after, and maybe you did, but I thought it was actually one of the best years. I think they made a lot of improvements, which is why one of the reasons I was a little disappointed with this year. It seemed like they took a step back. But yeah, the numbers are still there for the most part, but it did feel like there was a little slipping going on, and also it just felt like not only were the numbers down this year, but I heard a lot of people saying like, and not just Matt Glantz, who kind of made his feelings a little more famous and well known, but just even friends who come out and play 20 no-limit tournaments. I heard a lot of people just saying, maybe next year, maybe I don't come out again, or maybe I come out for a shorter amount of time. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, but something was going down. Yeah.
Do you think there's some aspect of it of the insularity effect of the people that you know and the people that I know and even the people that Adam knows? They've been around this game for a long time. Maybe they're tiring of it. Maybe they're souring it. But if those people are being replaced by new blood to some extent, because it's always important to kind of look at the community and the people that you know. But there's always the risk of just the echo chamber of well, I believe this and most of my friends believe this, and therefore it must be true.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah, I don't really even have a rebuttal to that, but yeah, I think that's a really good point. And yeah, I mean, just even, the main event, I mean, still 6,420 people coming out. There's definitely new blood. I know a lot of people who didn't play the main event this year, so there's got to be people coming in who are filling their shoes. And, that's just I feel like that's just a poker thing overall. Poker is still alive and well, which is one of the reasons why we need the World Series of Poker to kind of be our premier event and prop it up and keep it where it should be, I guess.
Their reaction, we had some tournament structure issues early in the World Series of Poker. This is with the $1,500 limit events. They were going deep into day 2 without hitting the money. Some people were frustrated. They were playing super long hours and missing
pretty
out
much
on stuff.
Everybody was frustrated.
Yeah, except Kessler maybe. But so their reaction, they were pretty quick on. Quick for them. I mean, they didn't do it overnight, but
considering that there was some issues with supposedly.
The fact that they did anything at all,
was
very surprising to me. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, I really didn't like the old 1,500 structures. I thought they were definitely way too fast. So when they had these super slow ones, like for the first one, I was like, okay, what are all these guys complaining about? It seemed, because I didn't go deep, but it just, we get more play. But then I realized just by, coming into top 30% a couple times, like how grueling and how meaningless like some of those middle levels were, and how they kind of messed it up. But I would give them a pass, especially once they fixed it. I thought that worked out okay, and I'm really looking forward to those structures next summer. Although maybe they're still a little too long, because like the 1,500 stud 8, for example, which was the main 1,500 that I went deep in. I made it to late in day 3 and still didn't make the final table. I think I busted it 1 in the morning on day 3. I'm not even sure if that's
basically a 4-day event.
But
yeah,
whatever it was, I know they went to. I know they went to a day 4 for the bracelet, which they don't do in any of the 10K events. So maybe it's still a little too long, but I thought they did a great job coming in and fixing the structures. And I think one thing we have to remember I have to remember is that for me, I'm very happy to have the tournament be a little bit faster, because I can just register the next tournament. But if you're coming out to play, say you love stud 8 or better, and you want to come out and play the 1,500 stud 8 or better, you want a really good structure. So I think they found a really good compromise. I think the first structure was way too slow, but they found a good compromise, and yeah, maybe it's still not perfect for all the high stakes cash game players or even tournament players, but that structure issue was small, and it was a mistake, and it kind of really affected the first half of the summer for a lot of people. But I think they made their amends, and I guess we'll just move on.
Yeah. So
next year and
let's move on to one other positive point I want to get to, and that's Terrence made this note, and I forgot about it, but he's absolutely right. 9-handed the entire way for the main event, even on day 3 when they had the massive turnout, the biggest turnout in main event in history. I believe they played 9-handed every day.
Yeah, they did
for the entirety of the main event.
And that's something that for sure I need to give credit for, because I have killed them before in years past for having 10-handed tables and still running, a bunch of 2.5 no limit cash games, and they fixed the problem, and that right there alone shows that they listen, and so which is another reason why I keep I keep speaking my mind, because they actually do listen, and that was something that 2 years ago I was on Twitter and I was in Jack's office saying, how can you have us play 10-handed on day 1C when all of day 1A played 9-handed? It's you're ruining the integrity of the tournament, and 10-handed poker or 10-handed no limit hold'em is ridiculous in the first place. And instead of telling me to shut up, they fixed it, and that's pretty cool that they did that. So that was very nice. For sure.
All right, so let's move. I'm sure there's some more positives. We can't get to all of them, but there was definitely some good things that they have done, and they are reacting to players' concerns. But let's talk about some of the stuff that poker players are concerned about. And I want to read Matt Glantz's tweet out that he sent out earlier this week. He actually ended up getting blocked by Jack Heffel for it, and subsequently refollowed. Jack apologized. I think he just sort of made a bad decision when he was a little bit frustrated, but he did correct that. And here's the tweet. It's, hey, World Series of Poker, recognize the need for a players committee. We all want things to improve. 5 mistakes that would have been avoided by the World Series of Poker with a structured players committee. Number one, new playing cards would have been vetted properly and immediately rejected and deemed unsuitable for play in such a prestigious series. So, Jesse, as we go through, there's 5 points. Why don't we talk about each of them? And before we get on to this one right here, I just want to say that I understand. First of all, I don't want to make it personal, and I'm sure you don't. Nobody really does. We just we're after improving the actual World Series itself. And I can understand how Matt's tweet might have been taken as, hey, we can do this better than you can type thing. And maybe it was a little bit harshly worded, but I think the issues are still important to talk about. And why don't we talk about the cards? Matt says a players committee would have looked at these cards and said no chance.
Right. The cards was probably my number one issue this summer, and still kind of is, just because I think it showed, and I don't really think it's Jack, because I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe Jack makes some mistakes, but I think he really is, for the most part, very concerned with game integrity, and he obviously doesn't play much poker now, but he's a poker player. He comes from a poker playing background. He's been around, cards and forever. So I don't really think it comes from him, but these cards were actually really, really bad, and it's just scary, the reaction that we got from the higher-ups and how slow it took. And then even when they tried to fix the problem, they didn't fix the problem. It's just really scary, and I guess we're just all going to have to accept that that's what happened this year, and that they're going to fix it going forward. And they do realize the mistakes that they made. But what happened was, these cards, especially in any mixed game, in a draw game, they were cards that were, you could distinguish the rank of the card in a lot of cases, or a range of the rank of the card, by just looking at how bent the card is. And for that to happen, and for them to not immediately pull all the decks and say, okay, we made a huge mistake here, is a little scary. And I guess the answer is, well, we can't immediately pull all the decks. We bought 30,000 decks, and this is what we have, and we can make some small changes here and be accommodating and bring in a new deck whenever you ask for it. But it's just scary. And then Ty Stewart's tweet about, throwing the paper airplanes around, that just showed that he didn't really understand what was going on, and he didn't really understand that he was overseeing a brand that was basically not worrying enough about game integrity. And you got to think that's one of the most important things that you got to worry about when you're running a gambling operation. Yeah. So that was bad, and it didn't really improve. I mean, the one improvement they made, and this is great for me, and it's great for some other people, like they put in chem cards for the 50K Players Championship, and that's awesome that they did that. But I would assume a lot of people might have thought that was too little, too late.
Yeah, it's still. And it's kind of a scary thought to think that you could tell someone that is, say, deep in a 1500 whatever that
you got the deuce of clubs.
Whatever. Putting that aside, the point that you're not playing in a big enough tournament to get good cards.
Right.
Yeah. Those guys over there, they're playing a 50K buy-in tournament, so they get the good cards, but you don't get the good cards.
Right, and I have to say, I really did appreciate the gesture that they made to the 50K tournament. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying is accurate. And by the way, it's not like you could tell someone has to do some clubs. Obviously, the cards are also easier to mark. So if there's like maybe a cheater out there, maybe he can mark them easier. But I assume a cheater can mark whatever he can mark, and maybe these, because the marks are so distinguishable, maybe we could even catch the marks easier. But what happens is in a deuce to seven triple draw game, just for like people who don't understand as well, a lot of the players will squeeze up their cards, and if their card is a jack, a queen, or a king, they're going to squeeze it up, and they're going to see a paint. They're going to see that it's a face card really quickly, and they're not going to manipulate the card anymore. They're not going to peel it, and they don't really care what it is because they're trying to catch a deuce through an 8. If they catch a jack, queen, or king, they don't care if it's a jack, queen, or king. They just throw it back in. So once we play for an hour and all of the jack, queen, and kings are straight, and all the other cards are rolled up and have a huge bend to them, someone's going to make a betting or raising or calling decision based on that at some point, and just that alone is really scary. And it's not going to give anyone a huge edge, and it's not going to change a huge amount of equity, but it could change the whole tournament, just based on, when I was sweating the final table and Phil Galfon, his card comes in and I see that Phil Galfon was the one who was Pat, and Ismail Bojang, I saw his card come in and it was all bent up, and all of a sudden he raises the river and he ends up with, a wheel, 7-5-4, 3 deuce, and wins this huge pot. And if I can see this from 20 feet away, and these guys are at the table, it's just really unacceptable. And that happened the first week of the tournament, and I tried to make people aware of it, and it became a big issue on Twitter and social media, but really it never really was completely addressed by the higher ups, by Ty Stewart and by whoever else is above him. That we have a real issue, and yeah, it's going to cost you guys money if you actually want to fix it. And they decided, for the most part, that they didn't want to spend that money, and it's a little scary, I guess. I don't know how much money. Maybe I don't know.
It seems like probably their contract with Modiano, the company that produced the cards, sort of took precedence over the integrity of the game.
They couldn't break the contract. It was worth a lot of money.
Which pretty much comes down to money, like you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, like they could have broken the contract. They would have had to, not accepted, whatever advertising money or whatever it was. And it's interesting.
Number 2, dropping Poker News coverage and moving all live event coverage to in-house media run by the World Series of Poker would have been strongly discouraged by the players. I take a little bit of issue with this question. I'm not 100%. I'm not obviously one of the players that would be on the committee, but if the World Series of Poker would have been talking to the committee and said, hey, we're going to bring a lot of the Poker News people in, and we're going to do this, this, and this, they could have spun it as a pretty good alternative, I think.
For sure. I think what happened here, and I really like the guys at Poker News, and I'm actually friendly off the table with one or two of them. But I don't know if dropping Poker News was as big of a problem as using the World Series of Poker, WSOP.com, and putting out a product that wasn't even close to what Poker News had put out. Like, if you wanted to use WSOP.com, that's fine, but like, you got to at least give us, the same amount of coverage and give people at home the same amount of coverage that they've expected from years past. And that wasn't even perfect coverage. I mean, people have complained about Poker News for a while, and they weren't perfect, but they were pretty good. And what they did bring was they brought these Christy Arnett interviews. And I know she's not in the media anymore, but people like her, interviewing people on breaks and bringing a little color to the World Series, and having accurate hand histories for the most part and stuff like that. Like, if they could have replicated that on WSOP.com with experienced journalists, that would have been fine. But what they decided to do was give us WSOP.com and a much worse product and I know that some of those guys get defensive about it, but I mean, there's just really no denying it. I mean, I'm a big poker fan, and I'm a poker nerd for the most part. I mean, like these last couple days, I haven't, but I've been watching the EPT High Roller without even the hold cards, just because I want to see, if Scott Seaver happens to turn over a hand at Showdown one time, like how he played it, or Sam Trickett, or whoever it is. So my point there is that I used to love watching, reading poker news updates, in the Omaha High or Better tournament or whatever it is, just to see how hands played out. And this year I didn't even consider going on there because I don't want to read a hand that I can't have any confidence that it's an accurate hand. And I don't, and they don't have content, they don't have video content. It was really a miss this year. And I don't know how they're going to improve it, really. It's a little scary, and then, then we could jump to their comment, okay, well, what are you paying for this anyways?
Yeah, that was offside, totally.
Which they made to us on Twitter, or not to me, but to someone else, and that's just, I assume most people connected to the WSOP brand would never make that comment, but someone made that comment, and I assume that they want to be building their brand and building interest in the WSOP, and there's really no other way or no better way to do that than having a great media coverage surrounding the event.
Indeed. I think this was a huge step back this year. And in an age where we have all kinds of live streaming available, just the way the distribution that's available to them now that wasn't 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago for content is it's a pretty big. Even if they would have taken a step forward, it would have been just sort of staying with the times, and instead they took a giant step back.
Although I guess while we are on the negative part, we do have to say, and that maybe people do take for granted what they actually do with those final tables. Having Tuckman in there in the live streams and the live streams with whole cards, that's actually really cool how they
totally
do that.
Definitely.
And, so that part is really good. And it's not like they have a problem here that's not solvable. They just need to, because I like a lot of the guys at Poker News. Sure, like they could go back to Poker News, but also they could just replicate, what Poker News or you don't even have to replicate Poker News, but just really have someone sit down and think about what good WSOP coverage would be and what people are looking for at home, and try to pull that off. I mean, I don't really see why it's such a difficult task. Maybe you need to pay people more. Maybe what they're paying these reporters isn't enough to get someone who is really going to do the job well. I mean, I know I could do that job really well. So I just think that if you pay someone enough, that they're going to be able to pull that job off. And I don't necessarily think you have to hire me to do it, but I mean, someone's going to be able to provide better content than what we got this year.
Agreed.
So hopefully they'll do that.
And I feel bad, singling out specific people, like the people that were doing the updates, but they were just put in a really bad spot.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they weren't trained, and they didn't know the names, and they didn't know how to bring color to a written poker hand history, which is really what we need. We need, and they're using these fancy words, but we don't need the fancy words. We need exact action. We need what was bet, what the blinds were, what positions they were in, and bam, now everyone's glued to it because they know that they're getting these accurate hand histories, and they're basically bringing the World Series of Poker, to your computer, and you can follow along, and that's what everyone's really looking for. I mean, everyone who's sitting in Bobby's room, even David Oppenheim, who's he's a cash game player. He doesn't care about the World Series of Poker all that much, but I see him all the time. He's sitting there with his iPad, following these updates. And everyone around the world, they're sitting there playing cash games, and they want to be following these updates and seeing what's going on. But it's going to bring more eyes to WSOP.com if they put out a great a great internet product, which is what people expect these days.
Totally agree. And what I will say, and you bring up a good point, is I don't need commentary. I need the raw hand history. You know what I mean? Like I don't want a guy to say, oh, and he snapped 3-bet. I mean, whatever. But or making a comment on how somebody played a hand. That's fine if that's what you want. But I'd rather just have the raw history. This is what the flop turn. This is the betting. Boom, and then we can discuss it amongst ourselves.
Yeah, they use a lot. Like Shane Schlager is a good friend of mine, and he's a really good writer. And one thing he taught me or told me about writing and passing one time is that the less words you can use, the better. And I feel like these guys are kind of going the other way. They're using all these feathery words and trying to kind of be cute, while really we just want to know, are we sure that he bet 22,000, or are we going to ask our friend later? He's like, no, actually I bet 58,000. Right. And then you just don't want to go to the page anymore because it doesn't really matter what they say.
Next thing was number 3. Structures in the smaller buy-in events would not have been so severely broken that the World Series of Poker was forced to improve them mid-series. We did talk about that already, but I'm not sure, again, 100% that would have been something that was caught. You yourself mentioned that you originally thought this is going to be better than the old turbo structures. Maybe this will work, but
I think with a players committee, and I'm not. I think a players committee is great, but I'm not necessarily I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to get as passionate about that as some people are. Although I think it could be cool, and especially if you have the right people on there, I think they would have caught it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. They messed up the structure, but they were trying to improve it.
Exactly.
And what they did do also is they really did improve the no-limit structures, although I'm not sure how broken they were, but they improved them. I mean, they really did. The structures had more play, and I think it'd be hard to find someone who would say that the 1500 no-limit structures weren't improved. So they did do that. They just, but that's where I guess a Poker Players Committee, actually, now that I think about it, would come in, because that's something that only really a seasoned poker player would come up with. It's like, hey, yeah, you are fixing these no-limit structures, but what's interesting? No-limit structures and limit structures don't need the same fix. They need fixes in different areas. And, and someone like Matt Glantz would have probably figured that one out before all the structures are laid out, while someone like Ty Stewart or whoever it is might say, okay, let's fix the structures. These guys want more chips. Let's give them more chips. Which is very nice. But, maybe if you have enough eyes of, experienced poker players on those structures, maybe they would have come up with a fix. I don't know.
Makes sense. Number 4, an ill-advised and very unorthodox pay jump in the main event in the amount of $230K from 11th to 10th, when one table is playing 6-handed while the other was playing 5-handed, would have been strongly discouraged. And I totally agree with this. I think this would have been caught. And Jack did end up going hand for hand, and that was a different issue, but it took a while. But yeah, the pay jump as well seemed nonsensical just because they wanted to guarantee $1 million for final tablers.
Right, yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one. I agree that they messed up. And I think the most interesting part of that whole story for me is that Stealth Monk, who, Justin Schwartz, who ended up coming in 14th before the tournament even started, and obviously he couldn't have predicted that he would have come in 14th, did predict that with these final 2 tables that there's going to be a huge issue with this, and no one really ended up listening, and they just kind of went with it. Yeah, it's just something that I guess that they should have had foresight on. I almost feel a little guilty because I was one of the people who was behind the $1 million for 9th place thing. I always thought that was a pretty cool idea, but I never, I never really looked at, how that would change the pay jumps but I also I'm semi against the $1,000 people getting paid thing, but I guess I didn't really care either way, and I guess a lot of smart people thought that it was a good idea. But I think the combination of those 2 things meant that they were going to have some unorthodox pay jumps, and I think they maybe should have just paid more attention to exactly how they were going to do it. And it sounds like, if Matt or someone else was able to, to have some say in it, then he probably would have been able to explain to them why it was a mistake. I think the biggest problem is that there's just not enough experienced tournament poker players who are in on these decisions. And someone like Jack, who is, an expert at this type of thing, yeah, his eyes are on it, but I think just one person is going to miss something when they're looking at 70 structures, and maybe if, 10 people are looking at 70 structures, maybe there's going to be less mistakes, I guess. I don't know.
No, the last one, fifth point, no live streaming in the main event pre-November 9. As technology advances, contracts need to be renegotiated to fit the landscape. Players would tell you that an absence of live streaming in an event so big to the game is a huge mistake that needs to be turned around for the upcoming year. Again, I can understand how they would take this the wrong way, given that poker players are telling them how to run the marketing side. But in having said that, I think Matt and anybody else who would have said that would have been right. I think the fact that we didn't have live streaming at all of any of the main event was a pretty crucial mistake there.
Yeah, but it's been like that for years, and yeah, it's just been like that for years. And everyone was, people have complained before, but obviously more people wanted to watch this year because of Daniel. And it's always been explained to us that ESPN won't let them do it. I think this was probably the tipping point this year. But yeah, this is the third year in a row, and I didn't do it this year until there's only 13 people left. This is the third year in a row where I feel like probably the best main event coverage has come from my Twitter account, which is a little ridiculous at this point. They probably should be able to. People obviously care so much about these final three tables of the main event. It's super interesting. It's just super interesting gambling in poker. It's the most interesting poker of the whole year, and it's certainly the most interesting poker of the World Series of Poker. So why not give it to your consumers? And I think people want every hand. They don't want a 2-hour edited version. They want every hand, and they want to be able to basically play the World Series of Poker final three tables along with all these guys. And I don't think they need hole cards either. I think just a live stream with no hole cards would be fine. I almost think it's
preferable with the amount of money that's being played for.
Too. I'm fine with that whole card.
Yeah. You don't want to necessarily mess up the integrity, or not that there would be any cheating, but just now you're final three tables of the main event, and the pros who have super smart and attentive friends can watch it their friends can relay them hands, and the amateurs, they can't really get that as much, or they might not be ready or prepared with a plan of attack. So yeah, you don't need to show hole cards, but I think it's a missed opportunity from the World Series of Poker that they could put out this product. For me personally, it's not the end of the world, but I guess it shows. I don't know. Yeah, hopefully it's just something that they start to do, and they realize that it's an untapped marketing area basically, and an untapped entertainment area where I think Terrence said it on one of the recent podcasts where they can advertise the hell out of that. They can put up banners. They can do everything with that content because it's their content to distribute. So.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do it, I guess.
I think I read somewhere that next year was their last year of their current contract with ESPN, so hopefully they can either renegotiate next year or at least the year after to start delivering it to more people. I know you wanted to talk, Jesse, about some of the floor staff, and you thought that the floor staff took a bit of a step back this year.
Yeah, I don't know. This could make me unpopular, so I don't know how far I want to go with it, but I just feel like deep in these tournaments, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little, maybe I'm a little too picky or something, but I just feel like deep in these tournaments, when you look up at the clock or you look up at the pay structure, and it's $700,000 for first, or $350,000 for first and a bracelet and a card player cover, there's a lot at stake for this in these tournaments, and I think that for whatever reason this year. I'm sure the staff that wasn't there, whether they got let go or quit, there's there's a good reason why these people weren't retained. But I saw a lot of new faces and a lot of people who I personally feel like didn't care enough. They didn't, they weren't. They were kind of clocking in, and it's their job, and I'm a human and I made a mistake. Like, okay, but like you made a mistake, and now like you've just changed like the landscape of this $700,000 for first tournament, and these tournaments are supposed to for the WSOP brand to be everything it is. They're supposed to change legacies, and they're supposed to be the most important thing in poker and what everyone wants, and now you have these new floor staff, and they're not treating it like that. So I got a little upset a couple times this year.
I think you phrased it really well, because I remember being Dave in one tournament. I can't remember what it was, but we just had one of the floor people who just did not seem to give a shit at all. And I remember bringing up an issue to him. It was something really minor, like the timing of the dinner break or when the day was going to end or whatever. And I said, it was a small enough field where I said, well, why don't we just ask the players? And he just walked away from me. Like, there's basically mid-question, like, I'm not going to even dignify you with a response at this point.
No flexibility at all. So. I think we saw a lot of the frustration from players. It sounded like when it was the cards issue, when people were complaining to the floor band about the cards.
Yeah, that's a good point. There were a lot of people saying, well, these cards are bent, and the floor would go, well, they're all bent,
they're all bent,
or they'll take the
and that happened to me during the main event. And yeah, it's two things. Well, one of them is, I feel like sometimes these tournament directors, they kind of look down a little bit on a complaining poker player, and okay, so yeah, whatever you were asking about, it probably wasn't that big of a deal, but it was something you were concerned about at the time, and you're playing in their tournament, and you're paying rake. And like, what else are they there to do if they're not there to make you happy and make you feel comfortable and make you aware of what's going on in this tournament that you're playing right now? I mean, seems like that's what they're there for. But and a lot of them are great. And I'm scared to go on too big of a rant. But I talked to Jack about this.
You're getting soft on us, Jesse.
What's that?
You're getting soft on us. Where's the Jesse Martin that just says what's on his mind?
Yeah.
Don't get him in trouble. Don't get him in trouble, T. What are you doing?
Yeah, whatever. No, but I talked to Jack about this, and I pretty much said all these words. And I said, Jack, one thing I really like about Jack is that I do think that he cares about he thinks that a bracelet is a really big deal, and he thinks that and maybe it's not, but that's what he thinks. He thinks that a World Series poker bracelet is special, and it's a really big deal, and these tournaments are really big deals, and that's how he wants this tournament. That's how he wants the World Series of Poker to be looked at. And what I said to him is, like, you got to make sure that your staff is mirroring that, because I think a lot of them aren't. I think a lot of them are like, okay, Terrence Chan, like, you're bothering me with this question, and like, all this is a poker tournament. Like, calm down. Like, it's not a big deal. And like, to a lot of us, like, we're, the reason why I'm skipping these cash games is because I think it is a big deal, and like, I want to do my absolute best. And like, if they're messing up breaking orders, and like, if you ask them like, oh, can you change the cards, and they tell you, well, what part of like, we don't have any other cards do you understand? Like, do you not understand? Which is what they told me in the main event. And then like, when I called for a supervisor, all of a sudden they came up with like, a new deck of cards on the spot. It's just like, it's a little
right. Well, I think they hear so much negativity. They hear, most of the time when somebody's calling over floor, it's for a reason, a complaint or something, and they hear so much complaints and so much negativity that it's very easy for them to cast them all under one umbrella of poker players bitching about stuff and not looking at the individual thing and saying like, well, is this thing really an issue, or is this person complaining for no reason? And like you said, even if this person is complaining and it's not a big deal, how can I assuage that and make them feel important and mollify them to some extent, right?
Yeah, no, I mean that's obviously exactly right. And that's how it is. And they do. Poker players complain, and unfortunately, obviously, me and you, we think that all our complaints are meaningful, and they're probably not. But we at least want them, and I know that some people complain just to complain. So maybe they're just beaten down by those other people. But it's frustrating when you're out there and like all you want to do is concentrate on this, like, playing against the best poker players in the world, and then you have these other things you got to worry about. How these guys are running the tournaments too. It's scary, but the one thing I will say is, besides the EPT, which for whatever reason Pokerstars is done, they put a ton of money behind it, and they've used it as their marketing vehicle, and they've trained their staff super well. I think they kind of have to be the gold standard at this point. But besides them, I mean, the World Series of Poker is still really doing a better job than anyone else. So that's cool. I just wish that they could do even better, I guess.
Fair enough. I think those are good points, Jesse. One last point I wanted to quickly talk on. We don't have much time left, but the GPI Player of the Year formula was seriously flawed. I mean, I don't even think it was close. It was so far off. But depending on, I guess, what your goals were with it, but I don't think it was very popular at all.
It was absolutely terrible, and that's like another thing that kind of like you just look at who's in charge and who is making that mistake? Like, who is looking at this and actually, like, logically in their mind saying, okay, I see the problems that, Jess Wellman or, Jesse Martin or whoever else has, like, looked at this, and I see what they're bringing up, but no, they're wrong. Like, Dan Adema, like, can win, like, all the 1500s he wants, but, like, he can never be the World Series of Poker Player of the Year because, like, he's not winning a $10,000 event. And it just doesn't make any sense at all. And I think that's like, is it a big deal? No, who cares really? But like, I think it just kind of shows that like there's these decisions being made by people who maybe aren't like capable of making like proper like poker like logical decisions. So that's like kind of I would say that and the cards are like kind of my two go-tos when I say who is like looking at these, who's making these decisions, and like, do we need, like, someone, in addition, I guess, overseeing, like, these decisions and making sure that they're not, messing them up. And I guess, like, if you didn't really follow the GPI, like, maybe you don't, like, know what I'm talking about. But, like, like Cord Garcia, for example, won the Monster Stack, which you tell any poker player, like, okay, like, your summer is going to be, like, you're going to win the Monster Stack. Like, that's, like, an amazing achievement. And he got less points for winning the Monster Stack than I got for coming in 13th place in the 10K deuce to 7 no limit single draw, which was like a 92-person field, and it just.
But you're playing the best in the world, Jesse. You're playing a 10K event, so necessarily you must be playing the best player. So it must be much harder to finish 13th in that tournament than it is to win the class.
Well, and just assigning levels, like assigning random levels to tournaments when the person who's assigning that level doesn't understand what the weight should be was the issue there.
Yeah.
Well, the other problem is that there's probably someone. I mean, I guess there is someone who is actually. I mean, if they're actually trying to think, either they're not trying to think logically about the Player of the Year formula, which is scary, or not scary, but which is just too bad, or they are actually looking at it and thinking about it, and like kind of having somewhat of a similar thought to what Terrence just said. I know he was being sarcastic, but they're really saying, okay, but this accomplishment isn't that big of a deal because it's a $500 tournament compared to a $10,000 tournament, and that just shows someone who doesn't understand poker is making these decisions, and it's a little scary, but I don't know. It's a little scary. But
I mean, I talked to Alex Dreyfus a little bit. I think it is intentional. I think it's sort of designed to get the big names at the top of that leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the other problem. Like someone like me, like that probably benefits me because I'm not going to play the Colossus because it's like it's up against the 10,000 no limit single draw, but And I think there's a lot of ways to fix the scoring system so you are going to get the bigger names with a better chance, but still at least, like, give someone who's going to, like, you know, win, like, 2 1500s and, like, you know, cash, like, you know, the main event or something, like, that person, like, can't, like, come in, like, 87th. Like, they have to at least have a shot. And, you know, the way they're doing it, like, they're not even giving these guys a shot, and it's unusual.
Yeah, agreed. Well, Jesse, I mean, we've taken up a lot of your time, and we really appreciate the insight of this. On a personal level, I want to thank you. You know, I'm a big fan of yours because of how outspoken you are, because it is people like yourself who drive change. I'm one of the people that, you know, I play the World Series, and I'm like you. I enjoy playing the World Series. It counts for about 60% of the poker I play all year round is at the World Series. I still enjoy it, and I still appreciate that there are people like yourself, people like Matt Glantz, who are willing to be vocal and try to make things better for everybody. And you know, you're sometimes standing in the line of fire, you know, from you know, on behalf of a lot of us who feel this way. So
Totally
I personally, you know, want to kind of close here to thank you.
I really do try to toe the line, and, like, I mean, I have a good relationship right now with most of the people, which I want to keep. And the whole reason I'm doing it, the whole reason I try to be vocal and try to at least, you know, one is because they have reacted to change to these issues in the past, and they have changed, and they have reacted to public opinion, which is great. And two, like, I want to consciously in my head be able to say every summer, the best thing for me is to go to the World Series of Poker and play every single event, and it's going to be fun, and I'm going to have an opportunity to make money, but, you know, I could have that opportunity to cash games, but I want that to be a decision, like, that I can make in clear conscience and not just go there and feel like I'm not getting what I should be getting out of, you know, the rake and the time that I'm putting into it. So I just pray that this was kind of an aberration year, and like you said, there's a lot of good things, and I just want it to be the best thing it can be, because I think the World Series of Poker is such an amazing concept, and poker is, you know, these poker tournament series are just they're awesome. They're a lot of fun, and there's a lot to be gained from them, you know, and entertainment and all that kind of stuff. So
totally agree.
Hopefully it keeps going.
Yeah, I agree, and I echo what Terrence said. And also, you stood up to Cantu.
Well, yeah, Cantu and I played together twice this year, and we were very cordial. And I have no interest. I can be anti-WSOP, you know, when I want to be, but yeah, the anti-Cantu for me is that's over with me. So I have no issues with Cantu. You know, obviously we're never going to be best friends or go out to sushi together, but yeah, I'm just happy, like, being at his table, and, you know, even maybe making small talk every once in a while, although we didn't really do that much. But I think he did laugh at one of my jokes, or maybe appreciate one of my, like, snide comments at one point. So,
trying to put him on tilt. Yeah. That's why you want to be at the table with him. Which isn't hard.
Cantu is a character. I mean, you know, I'm not the biggest fan, but he is a character in this poker world, and he is fun to play poker with. So
Indeed. I don't know if you saw. Did you see, Terrence, the video of him getting arrested at LAX?
Oh yeah, I did see that.
I don't know what happened.
That's not even like a shocking thing to happen.
I guess for the NVG fans, I did happen to see Cantu at the Aria playing 100-200 mixed games 2 days after that. So he's certainly not incarcerated or locked up for anything. I think he was. From the story I heard, he was trying to cut the line, or trying to, like, you know, move ahead of the line because he's late for his flight, and they weren't letting him. And
they weren't taking his diamond card?
No, and you know what? The funny thing is about it, like, if he was trying to move it, like, most people, 99% of the people would just kind of go, or A, they'll let you, or B, if you're Cantu, you just go, oh, I'm sorry, okay, I'll go back here. But you guarantee that he had some sort of confrontation after. Like, of course I should get to go first. What are you talking about? You're idiots. Like, you could just hear it.
Right. I'm sure he called someone an idiot or tried to keep going once, someone important told him not to.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Jesse. Really appreciate your time today. It's just great to get your thoughts on the World Series of Poker, and hopefully we can look to next year being a better year.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, I've been listening to the podcast actually a lot lately, and I've been enjoying it. So hopefully I wasn't too long-winded, but yeah, it was fun.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, Jesse.
Okay.
Thanks, Jesse. Have a good one.
Playing 50 big blinds deep with annies, the villain in the hand opens to 2.2x from the cutoff, and I defend my big blind with ace-3 offsuit. The flop comes ace-6-9 with 2 clubs, and I check call a 3 big blind c-bet. The turn is a free, bringing a second flush draw and giving me 2 pairs. And once again I check call, this time for 5 big blinds. The river is a 6 of clubs, completing the flush and counterfeiting me as well. I check and he bets 11 big blinds. As it's close to the worst possible hand I can have at this point, and I have full house blockers, I turn it into a bluff and check raise all in.
Team Pro Online's Mickey Moment Mori Peterson is a Supernova VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Okay, people. Most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the Pokercast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. Pokercast at 2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen Shahadi.
And I'm Jamie Kerstetter.
And we're one half of the Grindettes.
Inviting you to join us in one of the newest and coolest forums on 2+2.
That's what she said. It's a poker forum where we discuss topics surrounding women in poker, but everyone is welcome.
Join us, especially if your name is Patrick Antonius.
That's what she said.
This week on the Under the Gun podcast, hosted by David Tuckman.
I think, one of the things that I've gotten better at, and there's been a direct correlation with how well I've done at the poker tables, is being honest with myself. I used to always make an excuse. Well, this happened, or I got a bad beat, or this. Instead of just really looking at it and going, well, okay, yeah, I did. I got a bad beat. Yeah, it wasn't my day. But did I do anything to exasperate my day? Did I do anything to exasperate the issues that I had in that particular day? So I look at this day with Jared Blesnick on my right, and I'm thinking to myself, I go, well, because he was on my right, and because he was opening so often, was I pushing too much?
Check out the Under the Gun podcast every Wednesday, only on CrushLivePoker.com.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. Thanks so much to Jesse Martin for joining us and talking about the World Series of Poker. I'm sure that'll be the last time he wants to talk about it for a while, but follow Jesse on Twitter at MazerBowie. He has some great takes. Some good discussion, and like Terrence said earlier, is a great asset to the poker community. He's trying to do good things. Spend some time following his stuff on Twitter. And so what are we going to do this thing? We got a bunch of stuff to get to. We got some hands from the World Series of Poker leading up to the November 9 we didn't get to last week.
Right.
We got some mailbags. So why don't we get right into 140 or less to kick things off?
140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan
needs more than 140 characters to express itself.
140 or less.
Twitter was empty this week. Did you notice that? Because everybody's...
I haven't tweeted... Like, I've probably maybe tweeted like 3 times in the last week, I feel like.
Yeah. You're not the only one.
It's part of the World Series burnout. We're like on our phones all the time during the World Series.
It's a
There's
crash.
always stuff to talk about. Yeah, we're done with Twitter this week.
At Savage Poker, when tourney players say, in quotes, excellent structure, what do they mean? What is your definition of an excellent structure?
I'm happy that this is why we like Matt, because he goes out
fantastic,
there and just says, like, hey, what do you guys, we want to provide you with a structure. Well, what exactly are you talking about? And I think you get different answers from different people. I think
you're right. I think everybody has a different answer.
There are a lot of people who just think that, like, 200 big blinds deep at the start of the tournament's a great thing. I would rather get my eyeballs stabbed out with a rusty spoon. But like everybody has a different definition, and I'm sure he'll go with sort of like the best for the tournaments that he is coordinating or directing or whatever. For me, my answer was very simple. It fit in well under 140 characters. I said fast early, slow late. That's all I want in a tournament. I think if you run bad in a tournament, bust me and let me go play the next one. But if it's deep, if I'm playing for meaningful money, if we're near the bubble, if we're in the money, we're close to the final table, it should be reasonably deep. Skill should be relevant.
So now, taking that opinion of you and taking it to the main event, you love playing the main event, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's super deep.
It is.
Why is that one different than others?
Well, I mean, because it's a $10,000 buy-in tournament that has a tremendous amount of value, shall we say? So I think it is the most prestigious tournament that there is still.
Super deep early, right?
It is super deep early, but it doesn't stay super deep. It's meaningful all the way. I guess that's the relevant part of it, is that in the third level you're playing 150, 300. So if you have your starting stack, you're still 100 big blinds deep, which is pretty deep. For a main event, it's okay. I think that's only one tournament, and I think that's fine. And this is a thing that's designed to run for like 8 days, right? So
okay. So the main event's a bit different. For me, one of the things I like in a tournament is antes early.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I hate playing like
150. I was going to say with the World Series, if you're going to complain, it's the fact that it goes from 1-2 to 153. Instead of going from 1-2 to 1-2 with an ante, right?
Yeah. So that's my and like you said, everybody's different. I like turbos. I don't want to sit there forever. Yeah. I think you're similar, but there's people out there who love playing 200, 300 big blinds deep. They're fine to do that.
But the
they
problem
enjoy
is a lot of times when you start a tournament 200, 250 big blinds deep, you end up sacrificing a lot of later levels to make it run on time, right?
Otherwise it's going to last forever.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have, if we take it as, if we assume a tournament is going to last, 3 days, X number of days, X number of levels, you have to cut those levels out somewhere. So what I'm saying is cut the early levels out, not the late levels, right? Don't get rid of levels when it's meaningful. We should never get these sacrificing 2,500, 5,000, for example, is much worse than sacrificing 250, 500, right? They're both one level, but it's much worse to take out 2,500, 5,000 than it is 255.
Nice. Okay. So if you want to give your input to Matt Savage, follow him on Twitter, send him a tweet. Yeah. He listens to...
And read the other responses on there, too. I mean, the post now, it's probably about a week old, so you might have to scroll and find it a little bit, but it's worth because a lot of people are discussing it. I originally actually found it on his Facebook page, but even if you're not Facebook friends with him, you can obviously see him on Twitter.
At Mike Sexton _WPT, Mike Sexton's handle. Discussion we had today. How big a fave would at Floyd Mayweather be over Ronda Rousey in an MMA match? One guy said 20-1. I'd like to take that. How big of a favorite? He's saying Floyd Mayweather. Somebody said Floyd would be, you'd have to lay 20-1 on Ronda Rousey, and Mike Sexton couldn't wait to take 20-1 on Ronda Rousey. He couldn't wait.
Is that what he meant? I didn't.
No, he meant he couldn't wait to take Floyd Mayweather, even though he'd have to lay 20-1 on Ronda Rousey. Which is hilarious to me because I'm betting Ronda Rousey all day. I don't think Floyd makes it out of round one.
Happy to lay odds on Ronda, obviously. She gets a hold of your arms. This debate's been happening for forever, I guess. I don't know why.
I know you're sick of it, but it's interesting to me because I don't really hear it a lot.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just, but MMA, it's a different sport. Right, like it's just
because
weird.
it includes a little boxing.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that it's a great boxer or the best boxer.
Yeah,
is going to be. It's like just because it includes some wrestling doesn't mean the best wrestler in the world has a shot.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen like Olympic gold medalists in freestyle wrestling suck at MMA. It's definitely happened.
Do you think a wrestler has a better shot than Floyd Mayweather against Ronda?
I think so. I'd take a wrestler.
Yeah, probably because Ronda would have a hard time kind of dragging him to the ground. Definitely, yeah. Well, so she'd actually have to knock him out.
Specifically Floyd, because he's the best defensive boxer ever, right? Yeah. That's what they call him. He's not a striker. He doesn't have any knockout power. Like all Ronda has to do is go for his legs and get him on the ground, and it's over.
And she's talked about this before. Like if I had to fight Floyd Mayweather or any boxer, I'd crawl over there like on my hands and knees. If I had to, just to grab a hold of him. She wouldn't stand up for a second because she's not dumb. Because this has happened before. MMA fighters fighting boxers under MMA rules. Yeah, Randy Couture fought James Toney, and that went about as expected. He single-legged him. James Toney was a shot of water on the ground and didn't know what to do, and Randy tapped him. But
in fairness, Toney probably wasn't in great shape.
He was old and retired. And also a really old Ray Mercer knocked out Tim Sylvia, who used to be UFC heavyweight champion, because Tim Sylvia was stupid and decided to try to kickbox with him, which is dumb. But I mean, like, yeah, if you were going to do it, you just dive at his legs. I mean, I can beat Floyd Mayweather in an MMA match. Like that doesn't
really. Do you think you could?
Yes, but it doesn't mean anything. Like I
know it. No, I understand.
It's
a comparative thing,
right? I mean, it's like saying Dan Idema can beat Floyd Mayweather at hockey. It makes about as much.
His next tweet was, this is Mike Sexton. One guy said Mike Tyson in his prime would have no shot against an MMA heavyweight in an MMA match. No chance, ? Dumbest thing I've ever heard, #.
Well, he certainly has. He's live. I mean,
I mean, you remember back to, I mean, again,
people get knocked out.
If you're going to be dumb and stand there with, I can't imagine anybody in the world
with a brain cell
being stupid to try and box with Mike Tyson when he was in his prime, other than people who are Peter McNeely trying to make his $3 million and retire.
Right.
I don't think Peter McNeely ever thought he had a shot against Mike Tyson. So if you're an MMA heavyweight,
you dive at his legs.
You would just be on the ground instantly.
Yeah.
And would have probably little or no trouble beating Tyson at that point.
I don't know why. Yeah.
So I know this drives you nuts, but it's interesting to me because I don't really I don't have this conversation a lot.
The thing is, Mike Tyson is certainly not drawing dead. Again, I mean, the same way that Floyd isn't drawing dead against Ronda, but they're still both massive underdogs.
I think that's different because, like I was saying before, Tyson can, if you come within
he was a
3 feet in his prime,
he's a one-punch guy.
There's a decent chance you're out.
Floyd is not a one-punch guy.
Well, he doesn't have enough power to knock Ronda Rousey out with one punch.
I mean, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't.
It's unlikely.
But chances are she's too smart, wouldn't get a chance. But I mean, Tyson's money punch is also his uppercut, which is probably the punch you want to throw against somebody who's shooting at your legs, because they have to change levels if they get in. So Tyson stylistically works really well. I think the thing about this is that I think boxers have generally acknowledged, I mean, Floyd was probably the exception, but Tyson is a huge MMA fan now. He sits ringside at a lot of the MMAs, and he's like, yeah, I wish I would have done this when I wish this was an option in my day, because I think MMA is super cool. I would have enjoyed the ground stuff, but he realizes he wouldn't beat an MMA heavyweight.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, in current and the last tweet from Sexton was, if this fight were a pick and took place MMA style, by far the most money would be bet on Floyd. And I'm thinking, no.
If Floyd and Ronda were even money,
and it was an MMA fight, he was saying he thinks that Floyd, the money would be on Floyd.
Maybe in 1991.
Well, and as soon as that fight was even money, all the smart money would just be crushing on Rousey.
Yeah.
So, but and he's tweeting at Dana White saying, "Make this happen." Obviously, it's never going to happen. Floyd and Ronda aren't going to fight. But I think people underestimate. I don't know.
Let's put it another way: a man and a woman are not going to fight in a cage anytime in the next 15 years.
Exactly.
In North America, anyway.
Well, it's similar to we had this discussion in the World Series of Poker. You were talking to Dan, and you asked me, do I think you have a chance in a boxing match with Dan?
Yeah, so I think we said like 4 rounds or something like that. Because I think he said anything more than that, and you'll just win on cardio, which is kind of fair.
I mean, if he has time to get himself into shape or whatever, maybe. Because he's not terrible shape.
Well, he's not terrible. We did the gross grind with him yesterday, which is this really, it was like basically it's 2 kilometers vertical.
Straight uphill.
And, he came in at an hour and 8 or an hour and 10.
Decent time.
Probably 20 minutes behind me, so he did pretty well. He's good. He's in good shape, and he's obviously, ox strong.
Yeah. That's what I said. I just don't think it's going to be really hard for you in a boxing match to hurt him. I think because he's a big meathead. Dan will take a bunch of shots to the head before it hurts.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I would still like my size, but I mean, but if you said, if he had time to get in shape, well, I mean, certainly if he has time to hire a boxing coach.
No, I'm saying like 2 months or something. Yeah. where normal time for lead up, like similar to what you have. Right. When you say I'm going to fight in 2 months, I'm going to train.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when you take a skilled big guy will always beat a skilled little guy, obviously.
I mean, he's got you by what? I want to say probably 70 pounds?
Yeah, what is he, like 220?
Yeah, maybe more, like 80 pounds?
Yeah, 80 pounds.
Hit him in the face!
Yeah, so
I could definitely take MJ.
MJ, I like your chance.
Yeah, MJ also has 80 pounds on me, but they're different 80
they're
pounds.
Different pounds. Yeah, exactly. But Dan, he's, I've seen him fight a lot in hockey, and I've seen him take hits to the head, and I've seen it not bother him. I've also seen him lay some pretty big punches up. If he lands one, it's gonna hurt. And whether he lands one or not, that's a different question.
I get hit by big guys a lot.
What did he say?
I don't need that. Oh, he thinks he would win.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not nothing against you. If I had to bet, I would bet that. But you like your side.
I would like my side. I would bet you a good amount.
Would you? I want this to happen now. This would be fun.
You want one of your friends to fight your brother for money?
Well, nobody's going to hurt each other.
You don't know that. Somebody could get hurt.
I guess, yeah.
It's boxing. People get hurt.
People die in the ring.
People die.
I don't want anybody to die.
If he dies, he dies.
We need that drop.
Yeah.
All right, let's head to the mailbag.
And now.
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Mailbag.
I love that drop, but there's a show...
Catchy.
It is catchy. There's a show, the Jane Dan podcast. This is my favorite podcast in the planet. It's fantastic. It's Jane Dan. Jay Onright, Dan O'Toole used to be SportsCenter anchors here in Canada. They moved down to be Fox Sports 1 anchors. Hilarious guys.
They've graduated from Canada to America.
To America. They're big time now. But they do this podcast, and it's nothing about sports, really. It's sometimes about sports, but it's mostly them jacking around. They have a segment of Mailbag as well, but it's... did you hear it? I don't know if you listened all the way through.
I don't remember. I did listen the whole way. I don't remember their mail drop.
There's a drop at the beginning of their mailbag where this girl comes in and says, "All right, it's now time for Jay and Dan to touch their bag."
Oh,
and they do that. They take that. It's funny. Anyway,
that's so offensive.
It is.
It's so offensive.
Favorite things, by the way. We did put up a thread in the 2+2 forum because you and I and 3 of us, we run out of our favorite things every week. Like it's hard to just
you do. I saw that. You do realize there was already a Favorite Things episode, a thread.
I didn't know that.
You could have just bumped the original Favorite Things thread and just made your own.
I should just... Okay, I'll merge them then. But if you have some favorite things that we can read out for the show and turn it into a segment where it's the listeners' favorite things, which we never did, I don't think.
Nope.
Did we do that? No. So let's
sometimes I steal my favorite things from people. Like so in the original Favorite Things thread, people were recommending the Jinx. I don't know if either of you guys saw it. It's really good, and I know a lot of the people here like cereal. It is eerily cereal like, but it's almost the other point of view. And I won't say too much because
it's a podcast.
No. It's an HBO series. It's a HBO 8-part documentary or something like that.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where
we get no hints about what it's about.
Well, okay. So everybody in the thread on our PokerCast thread said the less you know about the story, the better.
Okay.
So it's one of those things, but it's true crime. We'll say true crime. Okay. I mean, that's the general genre. Excuse me. It's true crime. So check out the Jinx on HBO.
Okay.
The Jinx. Sounds like you might type.
I got a couple of podcasts I want to talk, so we'll do that later maybe. Okay.
We want to pimp other people's podcasts. Of course. That's all we do. We're renewed for another year. What do we care?
It doesn't matter.
You listen to us. Don't listen to us. We don't care.
Do not. No. Eric Denis, of course, from the GPI, sent us an email asking, speaking solely on ESPN ratings, who do you think moves the needle more at the November 9, Negreanu or Helmuth? And this was as Daniel was making his run to the November 9. I thought that was interesting because, there's always the discussion about who's sort of the most popular poker player in the world. And I feel like by a large margin now, it's Daniel.
I agree. I think 5 years ago, the answer, it was close, maybe even Helmuth by a bit. I think it's definitely Daniel now.
People I talk to who aren't involved with poker all know who Daniel Negreanu is.
My mom knows who he is. My cousin knows who he is. They don't know anything.
Don't know about Helmuth, yeah. So I would say on that, on that question from Eric, Negreanu, I think, moves it much more.
I think he does a really good job of just putting himself on mainstream by appearing on random talk shows and stuff like that. And he's just so much more willing to do media, so much more engaging. And I think the fact that for whatever your opinion might kind of be about how opinionated he is, he's very authentic, and there's sort of nothing fake about him. Well, as opposed to with Helmuth, you don't know that it's fake. I mean, half the time we don't even know whether after 10 years of this, we still don't know whether he's trolling or whether he's serious when he says he's the greatest player of all time and all this kind of stuff. We still don't know. He might be trolling us. I still haven't decided yet.
Possible. Austin Spina writes, sorry for the delay in getting the recap of your 2% stake in my 1,500 dealer's choice event.
I forgot about that.
We were at 2%.
We got 2%. Okay, how did it go?
He didn't cash, but this is some notes. First time at the World Series of Poker, and it was amazing. The dealer's choice was the most fun poker tournament I've ever played in, and I definitely had some run good to make it to day 2. Terrence, I was laughing when I heard you say we're intimidated by the number of games. You jump in a steel cage and engage in Mortal Kombat, but you're intimidated by a poker tournament with some infrequently played card games.
Stud no qualifiers is much scarier than fighting a live human.
As previously mentioned, I've only played live no limit, a few hours of stud 8 or better prior to the tournament. I read up on other games and got a few hours of practice on the Pokerstars play money tables. Only real issue my lack of experience caused when I was mistakenly played Badesi hands at Badesi.
Ooh, yeah, that'll get
That's
you.
a bad one. Yeah, I made it to day 2 with a smaller stack and lasted 2 hours, which was fine with me.
I think. Sorry to interrupt. We'll get to the rest of the email, but I think Badesi was, from what I heard, one of the most called games, and that's when I talk about being intimidated, it's a game that I put very few hours of Badesi's, and I think it's one of the games that mixed game specialists will call very frequently because people will play very badly at it in general. Badesi's a little easier, obviously, because you can make simultaneous good Badesi and Badugi and triple draw hands.
Right.
But when you're talking about making good Badugi hands and big deuce of 7 hands, you have that sort of split where sometimes you're only drawing at one or the other, right?
Unique New York.
Personal highlights of the tournament: yelling at Terrence, "Kick him in the nuts," when I saw him walk by.
That was him.
I was that guy. Sorry I didn't stop and say hi. You seem like you're always heading somewhere in a hurry. You remember that?
Yes, I very much so. I was walking up to Bill's table, Bill Chen's table in the dealer's choice, and I was on a break. I think I was in the 10K limit hold'em. I was just on a break, and I was talking to Bill, and I just hear this guy yell, "Kick him in the nuts!" And then I don't see where it's coming from.
You're like, what the hell?
And then I was like, was that directed at me? Because if he said
kick him in the face,
if he said hit him in the face, I would have known it would have been me. But he said kick him in the nuts, and it's just yelling. I'm like, fucking around.
Yeah, it could be.
And I see this guy just kind of grinning his face off, looking at me, and I sort of give him the thumbs up. And
that's funny.
Yeah.
Move to a new table, unrack my chips, look up and see Phil Hellmuth.
Yeah.
He had a small stack because he was deep in another event. Long story short, he raises in late position in deuce to 7 triple draw. I look down at 7-7 deuce 3-4.
That's a good hand.
That's about as good as it gets to start with. I re-raise, big stack to the left of me calls. Phil re-raises. I put them all in. Big stack comes along. One jack and the other 2 7s in the deck later.
He caught all 4 7s?
He has all 4 7s. Nobody else has anything. I fold in the river after the big stack stayed pat with a 9, Phil mucks, and walked off. I just tell people I knocked out Phil Hellmuth for simplicity's sake. After all, it was an effective knockout. Of course, the effective statistical tie, I think he's referring to there.
Statistical tie, yeah.
Some points in the
So
tourney.
it's almost kind of a statistical tie.
Some points on the tourney and a follow-up on last week's Bill Chan interview. The 108 turnout to the 10K dealer's choice was pretty good since the 1,500 only had 360, so adding 8,500 to the buy-in would normally chop the field in 2/3. Not really. I think it's a bit different to calculate that out, but...
he's saying that if you go down the list, every 10K has its corresponding 1,500.
Yeah,
and so he's.
I just think you're including more people with the dealer's choice. I think it's a bigger group to draw from than maybe like the Omaha 8 or better.
Well, I think that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying the turnout is good compared to the other 10Ks, right? Like the 1,500 is stronger.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
In the dealer's choice than it is in the other 1,500 events.
Point 2, I enjoyed Bill's interview last week. He gave me a better impression than I had of him in the 1,500 Dealer's Choice Tournament. I was one table over, and he was seated with his back towards me in my line of sight to the Thunderdome. Every time something exciting happened in the 50K Players Championship table, I look over only to see Bill's ass hanging out of his pants.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I'm not talking the small crack of a squatting plumber. His entire ass was hanging out so much that if he would have shit himself, he would not needed to change his pants. So he would have needed a new chair. Keep up the good work of the show. Loving the extended episode.
That's your image of the week, brought to you by Austin Spina.
Bill's ass, hands out.
You guys can now think of Austin every time you think that Bill might just shit his pants in the middle of the poker room.
Ian Keller.
This dude just did this.
Hello, gents. He's from Nottingham, England. 126 milkshakes from Kells.
That's a new unit of measurement.
I don't know that was a unit of measurement.
Okay. Doesn't bring all the boys to the yard.
Hello, gents. This might be irrelevant, as it may not be something that goes on too much, but regarding making deals or taking pieces with someone, mainly with people you aren't true friends with, why don't, in the age of smartphone, they record a video of the deal being made between themselves? I.e., if they're in the same room, both of them in the video. Swap recordings, as in the deal is I agree to, I insert name, agree to deal, et cetera, et cetera. More authentic than an email, tweet, Facebook, so they can't claim they were hacked if anybody reneges on the bet, and they can call them out. Maybe it's not often that people fall through on deals, but surely the most secure way. Is it likely?
I don't know if anybody who's backed out on a deal or claimed that. Sorry, I should rephrase. Start that over again. I don't know anybody who has ever produced a Facebook post and the other party said that it was hacked.
It wasn't good,
or Skype or whatever. Right?
We were talking about the World Series of Poker and how difficult it is they make it to make deals,
and it has happened that deals have been made.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So I talked to Sean Deeb this year, and he said we were talking about some of the deals that were going on, and he said his buddy last year got ripped off for $200,000.
Right.
They made a deal at the final table when they were heads up, and the guy who won the tournament reneged on the deal, didn't give him the $200,000.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me that this isn't widely known, because if I were that guy, I'd be shouting it from the rooftops.
Me too. I'd be freaking out.
There'd be nonstop threads
on.
Should be
a 40-page MBG.
Exactly. So it does happen. It's not a terrible idea that Ian has to
is it illegally binding?
No, not at all.
Stand up in court?
Maybe it would. Maybe it would start to help. I mean,
I don't know.
Maybe it's better than going to court with nothing.
That's true.
It's going, but in terms of buying pieces, just don't buy pieces of people that you don't trust. Period. Like if you need to get the evidence, you shouldn't buy a piece of that person. I feel like
right.
But in terms of a deal, it makes perfect sense because because now you're talking about some six-figure amount of money with somebody that you don't necessarily know that well. And if you go back referencing that episode with Sean, I think he talks about the deal. I don't remember who it was. Somebody famous made a deal with somebody less famous, and then the less famous person said, do you have somebody who will vouch for you,
right,
that kind of thing. And so it sort of mitigates that to some extent. I don't think it's a bad idea. Maybe, the
vouching thing is such a negative free roll, though. Like, I don't know why anybody asks people to vouch. Why would you ever vouch for anybody that isn't like super close to you? Like,
well, that's what
I would vouch for you because I know there's zero chance of you ever reneging on a deal. But I don't know that of people I know pretty well, and the only thing I'm doing is opening myself up to possibly get burned.
Well, but that's the point, is that you're relying on somebody else to feel like you, that you would only vouch, like that there is a person
there's
that
not
I
many
trust.
people. How many people in the world would you vouch for? Half a dozen, maybe?
Yeah, right.
So...
But
so,
yeah,
if you don't know the other person well enough to ever get that in that spot.
Well, but that's the thing. If somebody goes to me and says, will you vouch for this guy? I will. And that's not one of the half dozen to a dozen people that you mentioned. I would say, well, he seems like a good guy, but I cannot vouch for him because I just don't know enough. Like, I'm not confident enough to do that. That's not saying the same thing as, no, I think he's a scam artist and you change the deal.
No,
I'm saying I don't have this information. But if somebody says...
I'm not going to be responsible if something happens. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, if you come to me and say, I'll vouch for somebody who I know, will you vouch for this person that you know? And I'll say, most of the time I'm going to say, well, I'm not going to pay you if he doesn't. But what I will tell you is I trust him with my money. Right. I mean,
and I think that's all most people are looking for.
Yeah.
When they say that,
but I think people misunderstood then people.
Well, yeah, if you go
understand.
for like the Rounders definition, where where like you now you owe $40,000 because a worm didn't pay back grandma. Then yes, okay, but I don't think the real world works like that. A vouch for someone is like if I've people that I don't know and I know people that you don't know, and if I go like somebody comes up to me and says they want to borrow $3,000, I'll ask you like, Adam, do you think this person is trustworthy for $3,000? And you say, yeah, no, I've lent him money before and he's fine, then that's good enough that at least I feel comfortable doing it.
Troy in Houston. Hey, guys, love the Bill Chenner interview from last week. This, of course, was our mailbag from last week that we didn't get to, so this is 2 weeks old. First, an observation. After 20 years as a serious live player who's experienced the following situation thousands of times, I've come to the determination that whenever a player says, "Oh, is it on me?" the action is on that player 100% of the time.
Yes, it's a rhetorical question.
It absolutely is always on that person.
Second, that's kind of a tell. If you're asking, is it on me? It's on you.
It's a tell, yeah. If the person isn't paying attention, doesn't like their hand, is that the tell? Second, a question. I've been playing in a great private game recently. It's a 5-5 no limit only game with no rake. You're encouraged to tip the dealer. However, the house doesn't mix $1 chips into the 5-5 game, and hence the winner of each hand generally tips the minimum of $5. However, on bigger pots, you see guys tip 3 or 4 chips. So if 15 or 20 comes off the table in a hand, that's the equivalent of a hell of a rake, and for most 5-5 games may be unbeatable in the long term. My question is it unethical to explain this to other players about too much money coming off the table? Is it my place to say that $5 a hand is sufficient? I really like the dealers of the game, don't want to double cross them, but I also want the game to be beatable and sustainable. Really good question. Excellent question. What I will say to this is if you're playing with people that tip $20 when they win a pot, I think the game's going to be good.
Yeah, I was going to say, the email starts out with, it's a great private game. And so the question is not, can you beat the rake with a $5 rake? Because I think he knows that he can beat a $5 rake or even like a $10 rake or whatever when it's a big pot. I think that's clear. And the other thing I'll add to that is, usually, so he's talking about the long-term sustainability, lots of money coming off the table. And I would say that most private games that are this good, they're sustainable because most of the people in them have money from outside sources, right? You're not talking about 6 or 7 pros grinding it out, in which case if you did take a $10 or $15 effective rake, everybody would go busto. But when you're talking about people who just make a bunch of money doing something else, which is almost always the case when you're talking about really good private games, the game will be sustainable. So it's not that.
Is it different for the money going to the dealer than the house? It's no different, right?
No. It's
so this is like a game with a $20 rake in some cases.
It's not a big... I think... Yeah, and obviously you're probably not the person tipping $20, and at most casinos it's a $5 flat drop anyways.
Right. Yeah, and most casino games aren't nearly as good probably as the game that this guy is playing in. So yeah, if you're tipping $5, I mean, maybe you're worried about looking like the cheapskate who only tips quote-unquote $5. But, you know, I wouldn't kind of say anything to the other player. I mean, I
wouldn't. No,
I kind of don't feel like that's my place. It kind of does make you seem like
you become a target. First of all, for the person running the game.
Yeah,
you become a target for the dealers, and you become a target for the other people in the game.
Yeah, I think you just kind of you play the game as much as you can and beat it for as much as you can and hope that it lasts a while because
and when it doesn't, there'll be another private game somewhere else so you can especially if you're in the loop already.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there you go. Smitty from Antioch, California, 8,076 kilometers from Cal's writes, hey guys, getting caught up in the shows, love each and every one. Thank you all so much for your time and effort. My commute just wouldn't be the same. The sound on episode 369 was great. Remember we were asking for feedback on some
Which one was 369? I don't even know.
So you can look that up. I'll read the rest.
4 shows ago.
So much better than the previous shows from Vegas. And since it was at Adam's house, he didn't have to drive. Win-win.
Well, that's the answer to that. It's the one from Adam's house.
Well, we've done a couple from my house. Maybe that's where you should do them now on, so Adam has a better shot to keep his license. It might come to that. We might be doing all of the shows at my house.
369 with Jean Robert and Dan Idema.
Yeah. P.S. Hey, Adam, a few shows back you mentioned, and he goes on to explain how something I mentioned in the show, he could track where I lived. He could get my address from something I mentioned in the show. I'm not going to say what it was.
Yes.
For obvious reasons. Just an FYI, by the way, nice house. Which means
he's Google Street Viewed you.
Google Street Viewed.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's one of those things. Maybe I won't put that up there. But if you go to whois.com, pretty much you can look at anybody's address who owns it, unless they have paid the domain register to just put anonymize that information. It's actually one of the things that like GoDaddy will like upsell you. Like, hey, do you not want the world to know where you live? Well, that's going to cost $2 a month.
Oh, wow.
Indeed,
it's no fun.
Herbert Bennett writes, predicting a future tweet from Daniel, I'm not fucking finishing 11th again.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Expected. Definitely not finishing fucking 11th again.
Well, of course, Daniel has finished 11th in the main event twice. Jason Dick, on main event final tables, Ross nailed it. Since they've been showing the final table live on ESPN, players have been super rocked up at the start. That's the part that's in prime time. They want to incentivize action early on. Probably helps the broadcast end before 5 a.m. as well. Mm-hmm. No idea why they didn't flatten out the 11, 10 to 9 jumps. So let's talk about that for a sec. It's interesting. I never really thought of that angle when we were talking about it. When Russ, you did mention it, but we now have a situation where there is almost zero laddering up for the last 2 or 3 spots at the November 9.
Right.
They have a lot of time now to discuss this with coaches, so you're going to expect people to gamble more than they would in past years early.
Kind of plays closer to a cash game with big antes. Pretty aggressive.
Yeah, that's a very good point. By the way, I busted out on day 3 just before dinner. Finished day 1 with 95K, but got stuck on a table with Antonio, Mike Binger, Chris Demazzi. No soft spots for day 2. Pretty awful draw considering how many fishes were left. That is a pretty brutal table for day 2 for sure. All right, Charles, I have a question, but here's some background first. 3 guys are driving cross-country to sweat a friend at the main event.
Like
everybody listening? You got this? They stop at a motel for the night and are charged $30 for the room. After they leave where the hell are you finding a $30 room? After they leave the office...
There are a lot of $30 motels in like the middle of the
not
USA.
Anymore. Come on.
I think there are.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
I'd be surprised.
I've driven through...
There is in Vegas.
The random parts of, middle
Midwest,
and nowhere.
The Gold Coast.
Middle and nowhere to you.
I think in Reno you could probably find a $30.
The Gold Coast and like Excalibur are $29 during the week a lot of the time. Anyway, they're charged $30 for the room. After they leave the office, the manager realizes he overcharged them by $5 and gives the bellboy 5 singles to return to the group. The bellboy thinks they'll be happy to get anything back. So he knocks on the door, tells them they were mistakenly overcharged, and each gets $1 back, with the bellboy pocketing 2. So here's my question. If each paid $10 upon check-in and got $1 back, that means each paid 9. 3 9s is 27. The bellboy pocketed 2. That makes 29. Where's the other dollar?
So the missing the other dollar is if you go to Wikipedia and type in missing dollar riddle.
Oh, is it?
Yes. This is a really.
I've never heard of it before.
This is a really old sort of.
Oh, is it like the Monty
question.
Hall problem kind of thing?
It's not like a Monty Hall problem. It's the basically the way you solve it is you go in the opposite direction and you add all the money back and then you get the $3. It's not sort of a paradox. A quote from the Wikipedia. The question is very simple when thought of it in a different manner. The hotel receives $30 from the guests and gives $5 to the bellhop to return to the guests. 30 minus 5 is 25. $3 is given to the guests and the bellhop keeps 2. Thus 3 plus 2 equals 5, and the remaining 25 is in possession of the hotel. So there's no paradox. It's one of those goofy questions. I will say one of my favorite riddles is the Omaha 999 deuce hand.
That is a good one. Let's do this one. Yeah. For people who don't know, let's see who can come up with
Okay.
but they're going to be able to Google. That's the problem with these is you can just Google the answer.
Don't Google it.
Do not Google it. This is the riddle.
Yes.
This is for PLO players. It took me.
Well,
hang on.
Omaha in general. If you know the rules of Omaha, you should be able to do it.
So you told me
the most you can bet or raise is the size of a puck.
That doesn't matter.
In Hong Kong, you told me this riddle. And we were climbing up the mountain. I remember it.
I remember.
And I got 2 of them. And then the last one, I think you had to give me a hint, and I finally got it.
Yeah. So the riddle goes like this. It's actually if you are dealt 9993 in Omaha.
Is there a suit?
If you are dealt 9993 in Omaha, what are the 3 different ways that you can make the nuts?
The 3 different boards.
What are the precise boards where you can make the nuts holding 9993 in your hand, and that's all we'll give you. You'll probably get 2 of them immediately. Yeah, you'll probably get 2 of them immediately, and then the third one will drive you crazy.
No hints. Don't hint. Don't do that.
That's not a hint. You're the one. You guys are the ones giving hints.
Reply in the show thread or hashtag Pokercast.
There you go.
There you go. Hey, let's try the hashtag.
If you've heard it before, don't ruin it for other people too.
Let's do that. Yeah, exactly.
Hashtag Pokercast on Twitter.
Adam Aragonbright. I played in a game at a bar where we're always looking to make new variants. After hearing about the 7-card game that discards down to 5 on your show, we tried it last night, and it's pretty fun, with some 6 spots on the Turner River. In our 5 game, Omaha is called Colorado, where they live, and any game that has 2 cards discarded, one on the flop and the other on the turn, has the prefix nuclear added to the front, i.e. nuclear Tahoe.
So instead of pineapple is a game where you discard 1 card.
Nuclear is 2.
Nuclear. I would have thought it would have been fruit related.
It should have been like cantaloupe.
Yes, cantaloupe Omaha.
After calling the game Nuclear Colorado for a few hands, I came up with a better name, Rocky Flats, a location in the state with a grim history that mined and refined uranium for years. It's a good game. It's a good name for a game that can make you a bit sick. The guys I play with aren't into discarding face up. Keep up the good work. So it's interesting. Nuclear is the way to have 2 discards in your game.
Pineapple, nuclear.
Pineapple, then nuclear. That's going to wrap it up for the mailbag this week. Send your emails into pokercast at 2plus2.com. We're going to need a lot of emails for Terrence next week. He needs content.
Yeah, I'm not creative enough to think about anything, so I need help.
It helps. It just does help. It gives you the... Yeah, so send in your emails.
Give me things to think about.
To Terrence, pokercast at 2plus2.com. And because we've cleaned out the bag. We've cleaned our bags out. That's as much we got in the bag. So yeah, he's going to need some stuff for next week. So let's head out over to the Isle of Man once again and talk to Mr. Steve Day. Steve, first I want to thank Pokerstars for their continued support of the Pokercast. We talked about it earlier. Stars has renewed the sponsorship for next year. Producing a show like this is not cheap, and without Stars, it would be a much different show. I also want to point out to our listeners, because somebody did ask about this, that Stars has never asked us to talk about a topic or steered or any of our conversation. They're not. That's not the way they work. I know that's a rarity, and I want to thank you guys for that. You guys sometimes take some heat on the forums, but it's important that you guys. It's great that you guys continue to support the community, even though sometimes it gets a little heated. Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate that.
We're happy to, and just for clarity for anybody who wants to take that the wrong way and say you're not being completely truthful, I do sometimes suggest topics for this particular segment of the show.
Oh, yeah.
Not the rest of it.
Right, I didn't mean to imply... Yeah, no, for sure.
I know what you meant, but... Anyway.
There's stuff you want to pimp, and so as long as you guys are writing the checks, that's fine with us.
That's right. It's a pleasure. I'm really happy to be on the show with you guys. You do a great job, and of course, we like to maintain the relationship with the community and keep in touch with poker enthusiasts around the world. It's a fantastic way to do it.
Jason Somerville did his show for months and months every day on Twitch, and he said the only thing Stars never asked him to say or do anything. But apparently, after he was finished, he learned that the only thing that they were concerned about was him saying "big-titted honeys." he said "big-titted honeys."
Well, you know that's the only thing on Jason's mind is the big-titted honey. I mean, Jason can't think about anything else, as we know.
Running gags on Twitch, that's on the team.
Indeed.
It's across all platforms, the Pokerstars media.
Steve, I want to talk about the biggest announcement this week from PokerStars. There's a $50,000 buy-in event in the World Championship of Online Poker this year, coming up in September. And of course, part of this new deal is Terrence and I getting entries into that. So we're looking forward to that.
We're also selling about 92% of our action at 1.1.
No, I mean Stars is paying it. It's part of the new deal too. We both
we're still allowed to sell.
Turn over 50,100 and I'll deliver you an entry, no problem.
Indeed, looking forward to that. Double the biggest doubling the previous biggest buy-in of all time at $25K. Steve, that one looks like it's going to get a lot of attention.
I think so. We've been exchanging some discussion on that in the office this week via email as well. About a couple of parameters of the event. The first one to be discussed was whether it should be re-entry. We came to a decision. I'm interested to hear what you guys had to think about that.
Okay, and the decision is no re-entry, I'm guessing?
I don't know. You have to tell me what you think before I tell you the decision.
I think. Well, I mean,
it's kind of bad for the economy, obviously, but
if a bunch of money
it's
goes
kind
to
of
one
standard for the pros that play in it. I'm inclined to no just as a first time, and then you can take the temperature of what other players think, and then maybe do it next year. But usually, my inclination for a first time is to say no.
Well, I think when you talk about re-entry, one of the main bonuses for having a re-entry tournament is you spend a lot of money and time traveling somewhere when you're talking about live events.
Sometimes,
and if you're if you spent all the money to get there and you bust out, maybe you should be able to. Online, I feel like more for traditionalists like T. I think I'm going to go. I would go no re-entry.
Yeah, we ended up going no re-entry, and I guess there's a few reasons. One is with such a small field, if you had re-entry, you'd want to have a meaningful amount of late registration because that's how long re-entry is open, right?
Right.
And if you have a really long late registration for a field, it's relatively small, you can end up with a really awkward situation.
People
at the
buying
start of the
very close to the money. Is that what?
Yeah. Well, you might. How many people are you going to have when it starts necessarily, or because you have that long rate registration, you might have you might have 5 people when it starts. And that's just kind of awkward, right?
Right.
Hopefully, you don't end up with aces and kings and queens, and all of a sudden your tournament's over, right?
Now, I did notice that you're guaranteeing $1 million, so that kind of requires you to hit 200 players to make it.
200?
Or sorry,
20.
Yeah, 20 players.
Not like you're a math guy or anything.
Yeah,
it does, but you put like 6 hours of late registration on something to allow people to actually re-enter.
Right.
And then anyway, not all of those people are going to start at the beginning. So another reason is it's a championship event and it's part of the World Championship of Online Poker, and some people, not everybody, feel that there's a little bit of the championship aspect that's diminished if somebody who re-entered wins it. Right? Some people have 2 bullets and other people have 1. I don't know if you guys feel that's valid. Some people do and some people don't.
I don't know. It's I don't really have much of an opinion on either way on that one. I just think that all those issues that you raised are probably.
I know that MJ would say that it diminishes the value because
that's the kind of stuff he thinks about. Yeah, for sure.
We're just all 3 of us. Adam, Steve, and myself. We're all old poker grinders. Anyway, we just think about money.
Exactly. I was wondering, Steve, if you thought about 6. I see that it's an 8 max event, and I I was thinking maybe would that was there any thought into being a 6 max?
I mean, you don't get to 8 max without thinking about the number of players per table, that's for sure. It's definitely not the first one that pops off the tongue, so it was definitely given some consideration. I guess you can call it a compromise.
Effectively, it'll be 7 max for a lot of the tables anyway, because when you have such a small field, you're not going to actually have 8 a lot of the time.
Yeah, they're not going to start.
The players may complain about leg room, though. That's usually the big benefit to playing 6 max is that you get more leg room and you get to spread out a little bit. So.
What about the structure, Steve? Turbo-y, like what was the thought on the structure?
You know, as originally, there's been some updates to it since it was first deployed. We've been discussing that as well. So it was originally deployed really deep with a ton of chips and, 500 big blinds to start and stuff like that. But we've updated it and made it a lot shallower at the beginning to encourage people to start at the beginning and not feel like the early levels are just meaningless. So yeah, it's definitely not going to be a turbo structure, right?
Yeah.
But, we want the hands to be meaningful as well as people play them.
Indeed. So lots of stuff coming out about the World Championship of Online Poker. It's September 6th, Steve, I believe. Is that right?
I trust you.
Yep, September 6th. Got it right
September
here.
6th, I got it.
215 buy-in is the 109 is the first buy-in.
Is the first one. 45 million, I'm guessing, in guarantees, if my memory serves. It is still the showcase of online poker tournaments, Steve. I know the Spring Championship has its fans, myself among them. But when you look for a championship series online, it's really the World Championship of Online Poker.
It is. It's absolutely fantastic. The prizes for winning are absolutely spectacular. Let's talk about that $109 event. We've been running these phase tournaments, right? For quite some time. We did the first event of the MicroMillions this way. It was quite successful.
Sure.
But you'll have a lot of opportunity to play the starting phase, phase 1 of that $100 tournament, well before September 6th. So you can start, marking your calendars for late August as far as when to start your WCOOP entering. And, if you decide that you want to play until you qualify to phase 2, you can guarantee yourself you're going to be in, deep in an interesting tournament on the 6th while you start off on the others.
Nice. Looking forward to that. You mentioned the MicroMillions. That is in full swing right now. I believe event 58 started maybe an hour or two ago. The main event's coming up, $22 buy-in with a $1 million guarantee. That's this Sunday, the main event of the MicroMillions. Steve, I see so we're up to event 58 today. Just 2 of the events didn't hit the guarantee and didn't miss by much. But not as big of a deal when you miss a guarantee in the MicroMillions. It doesn't cost you as much.
No, I mean, the guarantee is out there, and they're there for the players to just make sure that the prize pool is big enough to fight over. And if we don't get there a couple times, we don't get there a couple times.
Brian Slick didn't get fired.
That's just the way it is. Well,
he's not getting fired. This man innovated.
No, it's okay. I mean, I get a report that comes through every Monday about how much overlay we had on the site the prior week, and I've never seen a report that says 0. I'll put it that way.
Steve, is there
part of doing business.
Is there any difference when you look at the MicroMillions versus the World Championship of Online Poker about what events you want to run? Like, are there some tournaments that attract people in, say, the World Championship of Online Poker that wouldn't in MicroMillions, or is it all, is a poker player a poker player?
I mean, we're looking for a different thing. I don't even know if it's as much about the people as kind of the theme of the series, right? So WCOOP is about it's about championships to us, and when we discuss the diversity of the events, that's definitely a prime factor. We discuss the buy-ins; it's a prime factor. You can see some changes in how we've done that. We've declared championships, right? This year, the ones that have the highest buy-in of each game type. So, so that's how we're thinking as far as the WCOOP series. And we want to put together the right variety for the World Championship of Online Poker. And for MicroMillions, it's to engage and give something fun to play with big prize pool for all kinds of people at lower buy-ins. And there's definitely pride in winning a MicroMillions event. I mean, you have to fade a field larger than I've ever beaten, most likely, to win one of those things. That's for sure. And it's pride, but it's not quite a a championship. So we're more going for crowd pleasing, I would say, right?
Sure.
And the MicroMillions.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the engaging people to play MTTs because we talked earlier about the World Series of Poker and the success they had with the smaller events, the Colossus,
novel formats,
different ways to get more people engaged in playing World Series of Poker events. And I never really thought about it until you just mentioned it, but the MicroMillions is the same thing with online poker.
It absolutely is, and it's it's even if you don't even have to be excited about it being a tournament series. You can just go and say, hey, here's a tournament with a small buy-in and a big prize. Let's go play it.
Yeah.
Right? It gives a lot of those opportunities, gets people excited about having a poker. For that period of time, you want to have that experience. You can have it daily. Now, our tournament schedule is, we have a pretty good lead over the market in terms of number of players in our site. So we're a pretty good bet for a big tournament prize for a small buy-in on a daily basis, really. But MicroMillions just kicks it up a notch.
Indeed. Thanks so much, Steve. And we will talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's speak again soon.
Thanks so much to Steve Day. Really appreciate that. We got a ton of stuff left, but we went long with the Jesse Martin interview. It was great to talk to him and get his insight on all that stuff. So we've got.
He called himself long-winded. I think that's my actual official job description.
Yeah, like if you two hosted the show, it'd be a long show.
There'd be a lot of bitching about the World
Series. So we've got Roscoe Report. We've bumped for apologies to the Roscoe Report. We bumped. We got no time for him. It's like the old Jimmy Kimmel running gag with Matt Damon. The Roscoe Report, the shout-outs, where are you listening from Thread. I keep, that's my tick. And what else did we not get to? We didn't get to...
I don't know. You wanted to talk about like World Series poker hands or something like way in ancient history now.
Yeah, I know. By the time we talk about these, it's going to be
everybody will have forgotten about it. But I guess we did talk about the lack of live streaming, so we will go back and read the World Series hand histories.
Do that. Yeah, we'll do that next week with whoever you lasso into co-hosting this thing.
Whoever I sucker into this.
Yeah, but let's get the Invitational. This is the Pokerstars Invitational for Pokercast listeners. It is a $1.10 buy-in in the private tab of the tournament's lobby. This is a $500 added from Pokerstars. They're going to add $500 to the prize pool. We do this every week, and we also have a play money invitational for those poor souls that are stuck in the U.S. and other environments where they're not allowed to play for real money. You can still hop up on the PokerStars client and play the invitational for PokerCast listeners. We need a format this week. Roscoe, what do you got? What are you up for?
Pot limit Courchevel, I think.
Pot limit Courchevel 6 max.
Yeah. So basically, it's just another Omaha variant. That's all.
It's more or less Omaha. Okay.
And also the main event of MicroMillions is running.
Oh, right. Yeah. So that's Sunday. We talked about that there with Steve. So you're going to Twitch.
I think I'm going to play my first Sunday schedule in a while.
You're going to deposit some cash?
Yeah, I already did. I deposited a little bit because I was bored, and I won $10, $15 heads-up Pilo singos in a row.
Did you really?
10 straight.
10
wow.
Were they mostly against the same guy or different guys? Every guy was different.
I got quit every time. Then nobody ever rematched me.
Ah, you're that good.
Wow. It's King of the Hill. King of the Hill.
King of the Hill.
Yeah.
The password for the Invitational is going to be WSOP 50K for the brand new 50K high roller. That is WCOOP 50K, all lowercase, all one word. That's your password for the PokerStars Invitational for PokerCast listeners. Thanks so much to Roscoe for both the ones and twos producing this thing. Terrence for being in town. That's great.
In your ass.
And Jesse Martin for joining us for that extended interview. Really appreciate that. Steve Day as well from PokerStars, and happy to be on board for another year with Stars. Thanks so much to all those people and to you for listening to the show each week. Really appreciate it. Head on over to the forum, please, and spend some time with us over there. We really want to drive some traffic over there. Oh, I know one thing I wanted to get to in the where in the world are you listening from thread. It's a quick shout out to Niall Duke, who listens listens to our show, and he wanted some PokerCast Run Good for the MicroMillions main event this week.
Oh,
so
you had to get that
I had to get that in because you couldn't do that next week. That's not going to help
we
him.
wouldn't want to be responsible for him not paying the mortgage.
Right.
You know?
So when he wins this, he's obviously going to ship us 2% for the Run Good. Thanks so much, Niall, for listening and posting in the thread. Good luck this week in the MicroMillions Championship, and we will talk to, well, I won't talk to you next week, Terrence will. I will talk to you in 2 weeks. Indeed. Thanks again.
Thanks for joining us. The 2+2 PokerCast has been presented to you by the Pokerstars VIP Club.